Okay, for the record, before we get this meeting started, we are having technical difficulties and we are doing our best to make sure this gets streamed. So anyone watching at home, bear with us. And otherwise, Mayor, I think we are live.
Okay. Call this meeting into session, our July 6, 2020. Everybody please stand, say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilwoman Harris, Councilman
Yes.
Borman, Councilman Phillips, Attorney Grady, and Hiram is in the other room. Welcome everybody to this July the 6th, 2020 meeting. Does any member of council have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest with anything on the agenda tonight? If so, please state at this time.
No.
Ms. Harris,
I do not.
Mr. Corbett,
No.
Mr. Phillips,
No.
Mr. Borman.
No.
Thank you. Amendment and approval of the draft agenda. Do I have anybody that has anything that needs to be changed on that? Mr. Phillips,
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Borman,
No, nothing for me.
Ms. Harris,
Nothing for me.
Mr. Nern,
Nothing, thanks.
and Mr. Corbett.
Nothing here.
Okay, so moving on to the general council discussion. You have anything, Mr. Nern? Anything I'll start with? Go ahead.
I'd like to thank our employees for the way they've conducted themselves and handled their jobs in difficult times. If you have any doubt, don't. You are appreciated, and thank you.
Ms. Harris, do you have anything you'd like to add or any
I
discussion?
do not have anything to add to.
Okay. Mr. Corbett?
I've got two things. One, the Committee to Honor American Veterans took down the flags that had been around the traffic circle. They were put up for Memorial Day, kept up during Flag Day, and taken down after 4th of July here. They plan to put them back up on Veterans Day. And special thanks to Rich Stopkins, Fibber McGee's, who donated the flags. The second item, I want to follow up with Councilman Nern, thanking the town staff for all the work, the good work that they're doing. That applies to all the departments. Some are seen more than other, but their extra effort is appreciated, particularly over this weekend. We had big challenges with the fireworks, and we had extra policemen out on duty trying to keep us safe there, working on that. And then this has been a particularly busy weekend for the Beach Patrol and Fire Department in responding to the many activities on the beach. And so thank you to all of them. That's it.
Okay. Councilman Phillips, do you have anything?
I just agree with Mr. Nern and Mr. Corbett.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Borman, do you have anything?
And for me, just to echo those comments.
Thank you. All right, moving on, our presentation, our dredging project update. Mr. Robert Neal, you have the mic, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Wanted to update. I thought it was important to update on the agency coordination meeting, the way this project's gone and the issues and the kind of back and forth. Just thought it was important to come and give a quick update on this and answer any questions. And Hiram, I think we have a presentation. I'm going to go to the outline slide, second slide. Just going to go through a quick talk about what the purpose of that agency meeting was, then review the outcome of that meeting, and then discuss the next steps based on that outcome, and then take comments to that. So I think this will be pretty quick, but again, felt it was important. Next slide. So the purpose of the meeting was, as we're all aware, I believe, but anyway, I want to repeat, the purpose of the meeting was to discuss ways to place or what to do with the dredge material, the beach compatible, the beach sand that we're removing from South Jinks Creek. Due to North Carolina dredge and fill law, the North Carolina General Statute 113-229H2, the material that we remove from South Jinks Creek cannot be taken away from the Tubbs Inlet system. This is an email from the state Division of Coastal Management that gave us a legal interpretation of what that rule meant. We tried to find a location that we could take this sand numerous places. Oak Island, Holden Beach, we want to take it somewhere that it could be used and somewhere that it could be truly beneficial to an eroding shoreline. The issue comes into play that Sunset Beach and the west end of Ocean Isle Beach is accreting. And so due to the North Carolina General Statute, any material that we place on the shoreline remain state-owned land. It is state-owned when it is submerged now before we dredge it. It'll be state-owned after we dredge it, and that would give the perception of impacts to the upland property owners for their oceanfront properties. They do have concerns that they would no longer be oceanfront property owners. So in trying to balance that concern with the law, we looked for many places to place the material. We cannot take it upland. We cannot dispose of it upland. We can stockpile it. We can stockpile it temporarily, but at some point we will have to bring that material back, and we'll have to provide that plan on how we would identify when that material comes back to the state before we take this option. And I will say that I have talked with the upland property owners. We do have a location that we can take it and stockpile it. We have that approval. I do want to include that. It's the $3 tipping fee for 40,000 cubic yards. So it'd be $120,000 plus $5,000 a year for as long as we need to keep it there. So that's that option is there. Again, though, I don't recommend it because it doesn't solve the problem. It just sort of kicks the can down the road. So in all of this, we have dealt with that. So looking at the locations that we try to take it include Sunset Beach, Ocean Isle Beach, Palm Cove Beachside, and Palm Cove Bayside. All of the beachside sites that we try to take it to run into that, since it's the accreting beach, where at least to the upland property owners, it's understood to be generally stable or accreting. In all locations, we faced the dilemma of they did not want to take that chance of that state rule and lose their beachfront property rights. Because again, the material, if we place it there, it's used by public money, state money to place that material there, then the state maintains ownership claims title, a vested interest in that material, and they maintain it open to the public. Now, this is a perceived, at least based on historical context, is a understood or perceived understanding, but it's not one that we can negotiate around. So the beachfront property owners did not want to lose that right or take a chance of losing that right. For Palm Cove Bayside, placement in that location is not permissible. It is that volume of material, 40,000 cubic yards, would be in extreme jeopardy to Tubbs, to South Jinks Creek, Tubbs Inlet. It would it could potentially close the channel, but also placing that material in we cannot place the material on vegetation. We cannot place the material on private property. So it would not, talking with DCM, it would not be a permissible project. Placing by hydraulic pipeline, it would be way too much material. So that ruled out every option that we considered except nearshore placement. And next slide, please. So in consideration of all alternatives, we felt, next slide, please, Hiram. We felt that nearshore placement is the best alternative. Hiram muted. There we go. So we're moving forward with nearshore placement. That is our recommendation. That was why the agency coordination meeting was held, to receive and discuss this with the agencies and get their concerns, both environmentally or engineering or construction, however they what they would need to see in a permit authorization or permit package. So next slide, please, Hiram. So the nearshore replacement option, this would generally what we're talking about. We're taking material. This is only South Jinks Creek. This is beach compatible material. We have the sieve samples and we have the sediment samples in comparison, those with the beach itself, samples from both the channel and the beach. And so they're, the state agencies are, we would love for this not to be compatible, not to be the same material, because that means we could take it upland, but the state, the agencies, the scientists with the state, they have seen this material and they are deeming it compatible. And therefore we are bound by that rule and by that law that it must stay in Tubbs. If it was not compatible or not the same, then we could take it up. However, it is, after they have reviewed it, it is the same. And so we are bound by that rule. This is the conceptual plan. We see the dredge area. Also, the pipeline corridor would come around by Tubbs Inlet, then go offshore to approximately 2,500 foot placement area. This would alleviate any issues that we would have with the upland property owners as far as visual impacts. That sand would not necessarily, we would not have any sediment accumulation, or they would not see the materials that it was placed. It would be placed in 10 to 12 feet of water and dispersed probably within 6 months. We'll say within at least a year to 18 months. You know, it would blend in with the natural contours and couldn't even tell a project was placed. Next slide, please. This shows just the location that we have chosen. It is the only place that we could identify using the state data, state collected erosion data, that does show some signs of erosion, at least dating back to 1981. And so for the beneficial use of this material, we've got to place it here. It would provide some storm protection as it mixed into the system and then came as part of the sand that's already out there. And again, within 6 months to a year, it would blend in completely, if not the next day after placement. So that we could not tell that it was placed there, even by surveys. Next slide, please. And this just shows just a quick example of what we would be looking at. Again, if we placed a 2,500 feet long stretch along the shoreline, we would place it in 10 to 12 feet of water and rise up to the 6 foot mean low water contour. So we would have from around 4 feet of material, 4 to 6 feet of material, looking for that 4 feet. We would keep it a very low density, 25 cubic yards per foot. So that's a very minimal amount, and that our capacity in that footprint, in that design, allows for 62,000 yards. We only have 40, at least of 2016. And 2016 data surveys, we had 40,000 yards. We're designing for 62,000, and that allows us to spread it in a thin layer placement. So again, we don't want that sediment mounding. We want it just to distribute as quickly as we can in the natural contours of the offshore in that 10 to 12 feet of water out past the breakers, so that it would become just part of the natural system. And so this is just kind of a show of typical what we're looking at. During the meeting, next slide, please. During the meeting, we talked about several environmental considerations that we did a desktop analysis beforehand. These considerations include exposed rock outcroppings, or hard bottom as it's labeled with the agencies. Also turtle nesting, shipwrecks. We have to look if there's any known shipwrecks in the area. We cannot cover shipwrecks. If they're already covered, it's okay to put sand on top of them, but if they're in any way exposed, we could not cover those. And we also looked at the habitat in the area, even right whales, even whales. And found that there is some critical habitat here as far as whales, but in 10 to 12 feet of water, we're sort of confident that we're not going to impact that habitat. And talking with the agencies, even any other listed species in this area, they felt comfortable we could work around and avoid any impacts to that as well. Going over a few. Next slide, please, sir. A few of the concerns that they did have, a few of the mentions that they had, was one from the state side. This will require a major modification. That's just the review process. There is a difference. It is a major or minor. Those are the two processes that can be. The minor stays within Division of Coastal Management. A major is circulated out to the sister agencies, all of which were, I believe all of which were actually at the meeting. So it's talks about the majors, just a delineation of how that modification be requested or be reviewed, excuse me. There is a potential mention that it would need to go, we would be an update to the Coastal Resources Commission is we had the variance. We don't need another variance. It's just a simple update. Same as here tonight, let them know what we're doing. And that's only a potential that we'll need to talk to them or just make them aware of what we're doing. It could be as simple as an email, just to have it on the agenda that they are aware of it. Also, one of the key items they did ask for the agency, the Corps of Engineers specifically, asking for how that sand, as we place it, how we expect that it will distribute among the natural contours. And that of all the concerns is the key and one of the largest elements or the significant elements that was mentioned, concerns. We expect to evaluate that through post-construction monitoring. We will give an estimate on how we expect the sand to disperse, but also follow that up with post-construction monitoring. And also during construction, the concerns were mostly turbidity monitoring. That is with any beach placement, even there's turbidity concerns with beach placement. This is near shore, so we're placing, it's open water placement. The turbidity was it's a standard construction technique in most areas. It's simply, it's not it's very commonly done. We'll just say that. And, but it is something we would, can expect to be required during construction. Also, they were going to limit construction to November 16th and March 31st of any year. This is what we expected anyway as well. That is just the environmental window. We're trying to limit construction to the colder months when their species migration is minimal. And so if the migration is minimal, then with less impacts, less potential for impacts in that colder water. It's also the roughest time to construct, but in order to the balance there, the environmental balance it's been proven to be a positive impact or positive overall. And so also during construction, we feel like agency coordination in order to keep each week, each day, to keep agencies very plugged in to this construction project, to let them know and let them see and invite them down to see the process as it's ongoing. I think that will be critical through the coordination, through the construction process. So these were the highlights of the considerations that they mentioned. We think the key element here is again, the showing how the sand will disperse as we place it. Nearshore placement is not done a lot by non-federal entities. The Corps of Engineers does it all the time, but non-federal entities, it's not done. It's not a lot of data out there for how these projects will behave or perform. So next step, Hiram. Next slide, please. So with this information, we see that we have there's no field work needed to submit this. There's no additional data. As we said out before, we have the data or it's we either have it or it is publicly available. So we are working now on preparing that major permit application, as well as the Corps of Engineers individual permit, which the last piece of that individual permit was defining a placement area. They have since February, they have asked for that. They have made it known they're going to require an individual permit for this project. So we see late July, we should be able to submit those permit applications, both Corps of Engineers and CAMA. We will come back in August once those permits are submitted, come back and start want to do new surveys and start preparing for construction, doing survey to update the construction cost. We will do new surveys to get a new volume estimate, and then show how much estimate how much the construction is going to cost. We can start that process. Through that in September, we will start construction plans and specifications and contractor solicitation. So that we're essentially bidding the project out in September, October timeframe, so that when the permit is actually issued, we will be able to go to construction as quickly as possible thereafter, once we have the funding requirements in order on the town side. So we think between January and March, we actually have a dredge in the water, and starting with South Kings Creek, that would be the first order of work, included with Turtles and Marys and separate. We can do those two at the same time without interfering with each other. And then come back November of next year, just the time frame of construction, the length of time it would take to actually dredge the feeder channel in the Bay Area. We only have about 138 days between November 16th and March 31st. So we would need pretty much all of that in order to do the Bay Area and feeder channel in the methodology that we're using. So that is that's the update and what I wanted to provide tonight. And I appreciate your time and happy to answer any questions if I can.
Borman, we'll start with you. Do you have any questions for Mr. Neal or any comments regarding the things that he just said?
Yes, I've got 2 questions. Just so I'm clear on the permit side, Mr. Neal, this is a modification to the existing permit, somewhat of an amendment, so to speak. It's not a new submission for a permit. Is that correct?
You are correct in terms. Being and I should mention Dawn York is on the Zoom with me as well, just to answer any questions. I should give her credit and appreciate her joining me tonight. But to answer your question, a major modification by definition is, yes, it is a modification to the existing permit. It is not a new permit. It would just be modifying the existing. However, because it meets that major terminology, it is the same. The review process is the same as if it were a new permit. So it's sort of a cross contamination there. The review process is the same as if it were a new permit.
Is a new public hearing process included in that major modification process?
That
Like
is
the 30 days for people to email in?
Yes, we can anticipate that. Yes, there will still be public comments received.
One other question, not really related to the slideshow. There was a proposal submitted by a resident, Mr. Staniland, I believe you were sent a copy of, and I hadn't heard any feedback on that. Have you seen that, and have you had a chance to analyze what was suggested there in terms of, say, an alternate plan for the placement of the dredge materials?
I am not familiar with that offhand. I may have read it and not recall it, but I do not familiar with it right now. Could you refresh my memory a little bit, or I don't?
Was that forwarded, Hiram? I had sent it through to you. I thought you were going to forward it.
Oh yeah, it got forwarded. That's the Mr. Staniland with the very complicated writing in the email. A lot of dots and parentheses and brackets on everything, but ultimately it boiled down to him either saying put it on the core islands or pop it on Bird Island as far south as into the South Carolina area as well, going up to the northern part of Horry County.
Yes, sir. The core island is available. We can place it in the core island. Again, we would have to at some point provide a plan to where we would bring it back to Sunset Beach or Ocean Isle Beach West.
Right.
So that doesn't get away from that. Also, whatever we place in the core island, the reason they're now letting us use their islands is they would require us to first remove 125% of the
Right.
volume we expect to place. So the construction cost now just tripled, really, because you're moving it to the island. You're moving 125% of the material away from the island, and later you have to move the material back to the island. So you're moving through.
I understand. Yeah, I understand that part. That doesn't really make much sense. But the part I was curious about, he was suggesting placement of beach compatible sand much further west, as you said, along the Little River side of Bird Island.
Yes, we
I
have.
didn't know if that was something feasible, whether it made sense in terms of how you would get it there. I think that would be the major challenge, but I'm just wondering if you had a chance to consider that.
We have generally considered it. I mean, we would, in order to move it down that way by pipeline, we would need easements from every single property owner on Sunset Beach to run a pipeline across their property. Plus the state, Bird Island is a preserve and not known to, it's not an acceptable practice we talked with them early on in this project, and it was not welcomed, not something they were excited about, that option.
Okay, I understand that. I think what he was suggesting, though, in terms of the pipeline, was running it more on the north side of the island rather than the south. I understand the resistance to the reserved placement. So I was just wondering if you had a chance to consider it. This was my main question.
And if we went to the north side of the island, we would then be running a pipeline through primary nursery area, and that.
Okay.
But
okay, I just wanted to know that it had been considered, and if it doesn't make sense, then okay, fine.
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Phillips, do you have anything, comments,
Not
questions?
at this-
Mr.
not
Mill?
at this time.
Councilwoman Harris, do you have anything?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
First of all, I do understand that the public will be able to comment on both the state permit and on the Corps permit. Did I hear that correctly?
That is my understanding. Yes, I would assume they would both have that opportunity.
Okay. With regard to Bird Island, I recall from our work on the Environmental Review Committee, Bird Island was discussed by that committee, and there's something in some statute somewhere, because it is a conservation area reserve. I do not believe, and I don't have a statute in front of me, but I am fairly certain that that will not be allowed to be placed on Bird Island. The other questions I have, when we were in the meeting with the Corps back in February, the Corps had asked us some questions, and they made it plain that they wanted data submitting whatever it was we were proposing and why we were proposing it. But they also said that we had to include in that alternatives to doing what we want to do. So my question is not the Corps Spoil Island an alternative? It may be more costly, but it's an alternative just the same. And would you not have to include that in the Corps' application? Also, doing nothing is an alternative, which I believe they said that we must have in that application. And we also have to provide data for all those 20 or 21 questions that the Corps has asked us. Have we done that? Do we have that data?
Yes.
Have we submitted it to the Corps?
Well, we will not submit until we have all the pieces to the puzzle, so to speak. So we need the in placement for the material. We needed that question answered before they will review it. So that's the path we're going through.
And my other concern is that it was plainly stated in this most recent meeting that the sand would downdrift in a westerly direction. I'm concerned about what this will do to swimming in the area. Is it going to cause rip currents? What is it going to do to the area when this starts shifting westward? And the scientists stated pretty firmly that it would drift westward.
No, it will. And we are only adding to the sand supply that's already there. And that's where we want that thin layer placement, so to speak. It's relatively thin layer placement, so that the material can disperse into the natural, so the existing supply of sand that's there now. So it will just blend in and do the same as what's being done today. So it would just be, there will be more sand there, but it is the same, you know, it would blend into the same system and continue the same function. And that's where we
There would
keep,
be more sand, but it would still be drifting westward.
yeah, the same as the sand is now. I mean, the littoral drift now is to the west as that material comes through the inlet from Ocean Isle Beach. You know, that is the purpose of placing it on this far down on Sunset Beach, is to have it move away from the inlet.
Do you have any idea of cost of what these studies and monitoring, et cetera, are going to be? Do you have any idea what kind of cost we're looking at?
Yes. What cost would you like? I guess. We're looking at surveys or to supply the permit application, or
Everything.
for the entire project? I mean, we're looking probably,
From this point on, what we've got to do from this point on, what are those costs?
well, we intend to provide that by the next meeting as we do the update, if that works. I mean, depending on how far out we go with the monitoring and I think construction costs, we were looking at 3 million roughly, if it comes to mind, but I'd like to update that. Between now and construction, you're probably looking at, I would guess, 175,000.
I'm going to ask this question one more time, and I've asked it over and over and over. Would it not make better sense to go with the 2-foot depth, just like the state permitted us to do? And that would reduce our cost dramatically. If we had to put beach compatible sand in the near water, it would be much, much lesser sand than going to the 5-6 foot depth. Why can't that be an alternative?
That is an alternative. That is something we're looking at and something we'll provide data on. The biggest cost for that is the repeat. It's two things really. One, the repeat construction cost. We would be looking at, if we only go to 2 feet, you're providing very minimal storage capacity for material shoaling in. So you're going to be coming back, dredging it more frequently than if we go to the -6.
Do you have the data to prove that you would have to dredge it more frequently? I know the Corps of Engineers ask you for that data. Do you have that data?
Yes.
Data. What type of data do you have?
Well, if we don't provide the storage capacity, we know it's shoaling in. We know that the channel is shoaling in.
Well,
So
are you talking about modeling or are you talking about data?
this is aerial photography. We can show it through aerial photography, I guess.
So it's studies of the topography.
Aerial, it's, yes, photography. It's visual.
Yeah, right. Is that up to date?
Yes.
Is it recent? Is it this year? Is it 2020 data?
We have through 2019, I believe the publicly available data is through 2019. We could obviously do additional photography, but I don't know that it would be, I would not recommend it. I think the data that we have, that aerial photography that we have, it proves the point or shows the implication of what's happening. But we could obviously look at that. The second part of that is dredging to -2. The construction, the actual construction cost goes up considerably. The equipment, the construction equipment that we're using that we're proposing to use here, any contractor, it's not a certain contractor, drafts 4 feet. So if you're going to -2, you're limiting, you do have a 5-foot tidal window. So there is sometimes you can work, but you would be fighting that window, that tidal cycle of when you can actually work. So you're having the contractor wait to, he has to be on site. So there is a cost for him to be here. But if you only have 2 feet of water, and he's drafting 4, then there's a considerable period of time that they won't be able to work, and they will need to be paid for their time to wait until that. So your construction cost goes up considerably. And you're also,
Can you give us a side-by-side comparison of the cost for everything we've just talked about for 2 foot versus the 5 foot?
yes, we can give you an estimate on that. Yes.
And how much extra is that going to cost us? To
I'm
do
sorry,
that,
I didn't
to do
understand.
that comparison.
We can add that in the proposal. There'll be some of this that's added in the alternative analysis, and what's not, we will, I'd have to look at that, and we'll provide that in writing before we do any work.
I mean, my question
consideration.
here is that we have gone through this depth process, and particularly looking at the canals that are being used, and several years back came to the resolution that the optimum course of action was to go for the greater depth, that -6 foot, both to get it done effectively, to get it done once, to slow down the redredging process, and probably some other reasons that I don't recall off the top of my head, but that was well before we went into knowing back in February 2018 that we were going to put in a request that's going to require a variance, because that's when we had taken North Jinks Creek out of the process, which put us in this bind of getting a usable depth to dredge and a usable depth for function, but caving into the pressure not to dredge North Jinks Creek.
That was the opinion of the people. That was the opinion of the people. The Corps of Engineers is asking for data to support that.
And Mr. Neal has said they will provide that data. I mean,
Okay.
there's a little bit of badgering going on here. I understand the questions. I agree knowing the cost is very important in that. But it sounds to me like you're doing a little bit of badgering.
This is another example of the continued efforts to slow this project down, to add more cost to it. We heard Mr. Neal say that to stick to a -2 would be more expensive because they could not work at the same rate that they'd like to work to do -5, -6. I don't see why we should pursue this any further.
I don't either. I agree with Tom. This is adding to the process, adding to the cost, trying to put it off more and more. That's been done for 5 years. Every roadblock that has been put up has been removed. And you're getting your way by slowing the project and adding to the cost. And
That's correct.
as far as storage of sand, that's ridiculous. It would just hold up the project longer again and add greatly to the cost.
Mr.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am.
These are not roadblocks that I'm putting up. These are stipulations that the Corps is requiring. And with regard to statute 113-229, I asked that question of Mr. Neal early on, sometime in 2018. I pointed out that there was the potential that you could not put that sand, remove the sand from the system. And he said, no, that this did not apply in this particular case. I also asked him in 2018, would the sand, if it's put on private property, would that not then become public property? He said, no, that's not the case with this particular project. I asked those questions back in 2018. I'm not the one putting up the roadblock.
What happened in 2018 has nothing to do with what's happening today. Everything is being updated, brought it up to date. This is crazy.
Mr. Neal, do you want to say, I see you like you want to talk.
No, I'd say that's absolutely correct. We, at council's direction, we moved the sand placement location to Sunset Beach. And when asked that question, if this rule applied, I was confused. I did not answer it correctly. I have since, at the next council meeting, I corrected that statement. And that is why we're here today is, we've talked, I think at length, the fact that it was not vetted well with the property owners for beachfront placement. And so that is one of the issues that is where we are. Admit, that is clear. I don't deny that.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Could you explain just a little bit the actual process of putting the sand down? The pipeline went out into the water. And then does it kind of like start at one end and just keep pumping the stuff out and move? Or how do you get the dispersion of the sand when you put it out there to keep it from becoming a big mound and to minimize the, after the 6 months, the impact it would have both on the shoreline and, if you will, on the swimmers?
The pipeline would conceptually follow the blue line on the screen, but there would be a barge anchored directly by four corners or being held in place by a tug. I would assume I'm going to assume it's going to be anchored on four corners by anchors that the pipeline would be tied on the deck of that barge, perhaps to the bucket of an excavator. So that the pipeline the end of the pipe could be lowered or raised as needed. Also, the excavator could, if through surveys determined that the material was mounding and not dispersing as we intended, that excavator could reach down and spread it out as needed. But the anchors, as it's sort of like an X, bringing in one anchor and letting out the other would move the barge side to side or front to back, depending on the scope of those anchor roads. So that would be how they would move around within that 250 foot, 2,500 foot length versus I think 150 foot wide through those anchors and just disperse the sand that way. So the pipeline, we would probably have the pipeline on the deck of the barge just hanging off the side so that we could see the material. That would cause increased turbidity. So if the turbidity was a problem, we may have to lower it into the water, but we would periodically raise it up so that we can see the material. But that is conceptually how it would work. At some point, they would need to bring a tug out to move the barge and then reset the anchors, and the barge that tug would control the barge to keep it on station, so to speak, and move until they could reset at a different location within our placement area.
And when the sand is put in, starting at those areas that are 10 to 12 feet of water, the sand will not come up any higher than -6 feet.
Yes, we really want to keep it below 6 feet
As you spread it out.
Yes, one for thin layer placement, but two, also navigation clearance. If we're that far, we don't want any small navigation boat. Just don't want to touch that subject as far as impeding navigation in the Atlantic Ocean.
Anyone else have anything for Mr. Neal?
I'm not,
Still, okay.
thanks.
You hesitated, I wondered.
Well, I'm looking for my notes. You mentioned, I got a pile of paper here. So doing it this way with the pipeline going around the end of Palm Cove, there's no more the issue of getting owners permit and easements to go around that has been eliminated?
We would still need at least one easement to cross over, but I think we've been talking with the residents of Palm Cove. I believe that's doable.
Okay.
We could go, if no easements were granted, we could go out and completely around. We could remove that need completely, but I'm confident we can get one easement.
Okay. Now, you mentioned in the feedback we got from the survey meeting it was, and you mentioned that this project has not really been done for non-federal projects. Is my understanding is one of the reasons the feds don't get involved with projects is that this one is so small that that just kind of doesn't come into the scope and the magnitude of the things that they do when they're doing their offshore placement. Is that correct, or am I off base there?
No, it's the feds will get involved. It's needs an act of Congress for them to get involved, literally. And so if it's a federal authorization, the closest to this type of project would be in Carteret County. We did a project, had open water displacement in Pamlico Sound or Core Sound. So it was very similar as far as open water placement. It was just in a sound, not the ocean. And that intent of that was to build a bird island. But the reason the feds don't get involved, there's regulatory on the federal side, the Corps of Engineers, and there's civil works. Civil works will be the people at the Corps that actually goes out and does the work. They actually go out and do the dredging. They will place material they look at project costs. They place it at the cheapest place they can. If there is someone like Oak Island or Holden Beach that wants to contribute to the project to have material placed on the shore versus the near shore, then they can partner with that local entity to provide an additional benefit. But the reason the regulatory doesn't get involved, the regulatories of the Corps of Engineers will get involved with any project that is permitted. The reason nearshore placement's not really done by a non-federal entity is it's beach sand, and it's kind of like gold on the coast. Most shoreline, the Sunset Beach is the only shoreline in North Carolina that is stable or accreting. Anywhere else, 99% of anywhere else along the Atlantic seaboard, beach sand is a high dollar commodity. Here we just can't give it away. So that is the reason the regulatory has not dealt with it, is because no one's going to place beach sand out in the ocean.
Okay. My last question, at least at this point, is what do you need from the council at this point?
This is just an update. We will come back. I will anticipate after submitting the permit applications that we come back next month and look at those next steps as far as preparing for construction, updating the construction costs, starting plans and specifications. So do anticipate coming back next month, 1st of August, with looking for these next steps, and it'd be another contract, another proposal to do that.
So at that time, you will start to have cost information for us?
Yes.
Councilman Ernst, you got anything else?
No.
Councilwoman Harris, do you? No.
Nothing.
Okay. Councilman Phillips, do you have anything?
The only thing I'd like to mention is I'd like to see this project move forward as quickly as possible. So whatever we can do to make that occur, I would support.
Councilman Boardman, do you have anything else to add?
No, the points have been made, I think, and just as Councilman Phillips said, we need to move ahead as quickly as possible.
I think that's it, Mr. Neal. Appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Our next thing is our minutes for approval, our June the 1st, 2020 first regular meeting minutes, and our June the 16th, 2020 second regular meeting minutes. Does anybody have any changes or any updates to any of that?
No.
No.
Councilman Boardman,
Oh, nothing for me.
Councilman Phillips,
No.
Councilwoman Harris.
No.
That being said,
I make a
do
motion. that we adopt the minutes as written.
I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Councilman Nern,
Aye.
Councilwoman Harris,
Aye.
Councilman Corbett,
Aye.
Councilman Boardman.
Aye.
And Councilman Phillips.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on next, we are public comments on agenda items only. Do we have anyone in the back? Got one? Get him first. While you getting that, I'm just gonna mention there were 22 letters that were sent in. All of them referred to the dredging. They were posted after the deadline that is online for our meetings. But in that, we did do a breakdown. It was 19 in favor of the dredging. It was 2 against the dredging. And then there was 1, just a common remark about dredging. No for, no against. We wanted to mention that because they were not turned in time. So by the way the council goes, that's the way that was. The rest of them will be read after the one that here speaks. Okay. Name and address, please.
Hello, I'm Larry Booth, 1703 Canal Drive, Sunset Beach, North Carolina. I'm just here to express my opinion and belief that we should dredge the Sound and Jinks Creek to the 5 to 6 foot depth. I firmly believe that if you only dredge it 2 feet, I agree with the engineers that it would fill in much quickly and quickly, and the best cost effectiveness would be to go to the depth because of cost, as the engineers have mentioned, and also the longevity of the time it would take to fill up again, rather than just we know more volume, a 6 foot volume is a lot greater than a 2 foot volume. So I appreciate the town and the councilmen and ladies working on this, and pray and that you'll choose wisely and benefit the town of Sunset Beach. The Jinks Creek and the inlet is an asset to this community and to the people of North Carolina. And if we do nothing, I think that the Tubbs Inlet will go the way of Madden Inlet, and we will lose the nourishment that the ocean provides every day to the wetlands that we have here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Moving on, I will now read into our meeting the letters that were wrote in, and there's some for, some against, and I think there's a couple. It's just obvious things. All of them do, as far as I know, regarding to the dredging, I think. So I'll start reading those as quick as possible, please, but try to get everybody's comments in. First one is Cindy Levine, 1834 East Main Street, Town Council and Mayor. I would like to know who decided to stop the dredging project at the Palm Cove Marina. Why is the east end of Jinks Creek not included in the project? It seems like it is widely used area and does not make sense to me why it would be excluded in the project. It is my understanding that there is money already approved and set aside for the dredging of the east end of Sunset and west end of Ocean Isle. Why would this not be done at the same time? Also, if the project goes forward as planned, would you not need to get approval for an easement from the Palm Cove owner? It seems a great place for the dredging spoils, where they would be on top of the Palm Cove sandbags. Why not put it there? It would build the beach back up to what was lost from the erosion and make it look better. Seems like a win-win and would cost less than trying to pump it in the ocean. Ms. Cindy Levine. Next up is Mr. Patrick Alderson, 421 Sailfish Street. It says, I am voicing my support for the town dredging program and wish for the council to proceed with haste. Next up is Dean McKinney, 402 Dolphin Street. Says, to the town Sunset Beach, regarding the council meeting, I would like to endorse my support for the pending dredging project to be read into the record. I am in favor. Let's see. Next up is Gina Young, 432 Sailfish. We're writing to express our opposition to the proposed dredging project that includes 5 foot of dredging, the dredging of South Jinks, and the dumping of dredged sand into the water off the east end of the island.
Can you check your microphone and make sure you're on?
Just keep.
We can't hear the mayor.
We lost the mayor. We can't hear Chambers.
Chambers is showing mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Got me? Okay. Again, this is Young's. This is in opposition. It says we are in favor of 2-foot dredging and the canals. This thing has gone off again. This thing right here.
No, it's fine. Fine.
Okay, but this completely went out. The amount of money that has already been spent studying this is excessive and unacceptable, and we shudder to think what the project will cost if it includes South Jinks and the 5-foot of dredging. We have been given no indication thus far as to what the expense will be for property owners. We are canal owners with huge concerns about not only the cost of implementing, but from the dredging that will cause the beach unusable for several months. And now we are told the dredging project could go on for 2 years. In addition, we do not want the dredged sand washing up on the pristine white beach. The part of the project is completely unnecessary. Please end the discussion and proceed with approved 2-foot this fall and eliminate South Jinks, the Youngs. This one is from John Butcher, 423 Sailfish. I own and live at Sailfish Sunset Beach, and I support dredging. I am on one of the canals and want this project to move forward soonest because funding is at further risk and our waterways are in further compromise. This one is from Gary Moret. Trying to read. Lisa, you didn't put out where the address is on here. Oyster Bay. Okay, I said Oyster Bay. It has been my understanding that the original proposed dredging project was for maintenance dredging of all areas in the current proposal. It was supposed to restore areas to the original depth. Also, there has been a lot of discussion whether Jinks Creek has ever been legally dredged to the proposed 5 to 6 foot dredge, 80 over 100 wide dimension, but the current proposal proposes maintenance dredging South Jinks Creek near shore placement. How can this be called maintenance dredging? In addition, here's the proposed schedule as presented June 30th, 2020 to the regulatory agencies. A, January 2021 through March 2021, maintenance dredge South Jinks Creek with nearshore placement. And B, November 2021 through 2022, maintenance dredge feeder channel systems and Bay Area. If the project goes forward, shouldn't the feeder channel system and the Bay Area be dredged first? The property owners in these areas have been waiting a long time for a solution. Next is Austin Cohen, 1019 Glen Day Drive, Clemens, North Carolina. As a partial owner of a house on the Back Bay, I want you to know that this project has the full support of myself and other owners at our house. Just dredge it. I request that this be read. Rich Serrato, 517 Twisted Oak Lane. From February 2016 to March 2020, the town has spent $499,508.44 for the dredging contract services. The contract amount is $501,534. This total excludes all related legal charges. Responding to my request, Mayor Phillip indicates this matter will be a future agenda topic. The overwhelming majority of the contracted expenses are related to the dredging both North Jinks Creek and South Jinks Creek. NJC was removed by the USACE and the permit to dredge South Jinks Creek was denied by the USACE. The USACE also informed the town that they will need to reapply for a new permitting process to both state and to the USACE, apparently revealing this $500,000 may have been wasted. As reported at the June 30th meeting, to dump the South Jinks Creek spoils into the ocean was met with skepticism. The new effort will now require more tests, monitoring, delays, and taxpayer money without any guarantee that the United States Army Corps of Engineers will even approve the permit for South Jinks Creek or even allow the town to dump the South Jinks Creek spoils into the ocean. Also, any new effort to dredge South Jinks Creek will now exceed the current contract amount and without any assurance that the dredging grant will either be extended or increased. Mr. Mayor, continuing this effort defies basic business logics and ethical standards demonstrated by the town's attempt to filter and or conceal this public record information. This also further exposes and validates how certain members of the board are leading the effort. Furthermore, it continues to demonstrate the continuing appearance of and potential for conflict of interest. I have also been reminded that the attorney will rationalize any decision that the council majority desires, even though in this case, the impact criteria conflicts with the standards published by the North Carolina School of Government. Mr. Mayor, would you please instruct the council to put forward a motion requiring the county to publicly vote, the council to publicly vote to remove South Jinks Creek from the dredging project. The taxpayers deserve individual accountability. Tom and Frida Harrington, 312 Circle Park Place, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I am writing to voice my strong support for the dredging project at Sunset Beach and request that my message be read. My wife and I have owned the house at 417 Sailfish Street for the past 18 years. I am writing to express our full and complete support for the project and urge the council to proceed with this project. We're especially concerned about the needs of South Jinks Creek to be included in this dredging project. David Rucker, 1509 North Shore Drive. I am full-time resident of Sunset Beach and I stand in support of the dredging project to its full 5 foot depth approved. South Jinks Creeks and the canals become less navigable every day, resulting in poor water flow, more boats stranded, and dwindling navigation hours in the day. Property values, rental income, and the tax base will erode as the watercraft usage becomes more limited. We are losing our beautiful fishery in Tubbs Inlet, moving ahead with the dredging project and restoring our waterways to navigate use and increase the water flow to improve shellfish life in the fishery. Barry and Karen Wishon, 1511 North Shore Drive. We have owned canal property here at Sunset for over 20 years. The canals are reaching a point where they're very limited with our boating activities. Our concerns as homeowners and real estate professionals is that we could see our property values severely erode without dredging. We hear from our clients if boating is important, they would rather buy at Ocean Isle or Holden, where the canals are deeper and well maintained. Also, renters who want to boat are bypassing Sunset for OIB and Holden. When the canals were previously dredged, there was a big improvement in water quality and boating access. In my opinion, this is an issue for the canal lot owners who will be paying for it. We're very much in favor of dredging. All right, Andrea DeFranco, 1522 North Shore. I would like to request that the following comments be read. I would like to express my complete support for the full dredging project to move forward. Keeping South Jinks as part of the dredging plan, along with the feeder canals, finger canals, and bay area is very important because the small area is the vital connection recreational boaters, fishermen, and kayakers use to access the intercoastal waterway. Additionally, this is the area most in need of dredging. Sand has accreted in the area at an especially fast rate, making it almost impossible to pass and very dangerous. After many years of coastal engineer and town officials exploring all the options available for this beach-compatible sand, the best choice at this point is to place the sand near the shore or in the waters west of Tubbs Inlet. The time to finalize this project is now. The dredging permit has an expiration date, so does the state grant, which is set to expire on June 30th, 2021. This means a plan needs to be finalized soon, so the dredging on this long-awaited and much-needed project can be done by the fall of 2020, a few months away. Tom and Debbie Lathery. As homeowners of 1516 North Shore Drive East, we're writing to express our support for the dredging project. In project, and particularly Jinks Creek and Tubbs Inlet. We are fully supportive for the new plan for the placement. There's absolutely no doubt that the dredging is needed for public safety, maintenance of a healthy ecosystem, and maintenance of the property value. There are at least 3 locations in Jinks Creek where boaters regularly get stuck, often hitting high sandbars at speeds and injuring boaters. I have personally helped 3 boaters try to push their boats off the sandbars during low tide. When boating, I have been to the back of my dock in Tubbs Inlet at least 2 hours before low tide, and I cannot return to the dock at my house. The saltwater habitat in Tubbs Inlet and Jinks Creek are being filled with sand, and we will soon have no waters to support our fish, oyster, and other life. It is incomprehensible that anyone can honestly agree or cannot honestly argue against the need for dredging. I encourage doubters to get a boat and visit the low tide. Call me and let me know. This is Ted James, 403 37th Street. After 5 years and $500,000 of taxpayers' money spent on ill-conceived deep water, deep draft dredge proposal, we are still ignoring or refusing to address the reality of the facts and issues presented by concerned citizens and Coastal Sciences. Because pro-dredge majority council members, past and present, who each stand to financially gain with the improved property values and refuse to debate facts that they don't like. We are in this mess today. All the important council dredge votes for 5 years have been split votes 3-2. Why? Not presenting any facts of their own as pro-dredge council members has forced citizens who are concerned about the marsh ecosystem, the environment, and the quiet, unhurried way of life at Sunset Beach to put forth their own research and facts based on respected scientists. Meanwhile, Moffitt-Nickel has continued to reframe facts the pro-dredge majority doesn't like. After all, the pro-dredge majority pay the invoices. No wonder the M&N so-called report outs are long on potential and short on reality. Here's the reality, and here are the facts. The split vote pro-majority has gone through at least 3 mayors. Unwilling to wait, the present majority uses developer interests in Raleigh to get a depth variance request approved at the state level. This was purposely rushed and done well before the Army Corps reviewed our last application for a permit. Meanwhile, the January 21st letter from the Army Corps of Engineers rejected our second application with an in-depth description of the insignificance. The town draft response to the Corps' letter was submitted late, 30 days late, and was again insignificant, according to the Corps. 20 times in their January the 21st letter to the town, the Army Corps of Engineers requested data and substance. Please provide, respond, define, describe, detail, etc. The town administrator and M&N chose not to respond to the requested substance and data. Result, the application was pulled. Essentially, the same application was submitted and rejected 3 times for insignificant data. Even today, we are continuing to propose a new dumping option when we still have not presented the data referred to 20 times by the Corps. Good people, what are we doing? What are we still doing it? Why are we still doing it? Why do we continue to really need deep water, deep draft dredging? South Jinks Creek has never been dredged, therefore you cannot call it maintenance dredging. It was moved when Tubbs Inlet was moved. Why can't we just agree to maintenance dredge the feeder and finger canals and channel the 2 feet as previously done? After we find out which taxpayers want it and which taxpayers now and in the future will pay for it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
can I point out we still have a 3-minute time limit?
Yes, sir. You can, and I'm reading as fast as I can, sir.
Well, 3 minutes is up. You should stop.
You keep your time for me then, but I'm trying to go as fast as I can, sir.
I know you are.
All right, this is next is Kelly and Lee Harris. It is 1809 Canal Drive on the Bay of Sunset Beach. We fully and completely support the entire dredging project as proposed, including South Jinks Creek. We support the near offshore disposal of the sand removed from the South Jinks Creek area, which has been studied and found to be compatible with beach sand. This is the small amount of sand related to most dredging projects and will disappear quickly. The method is being used successfully by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on a regular basis. We have seen many boaters stuck in South Jinks Creek area and have rescued one young man ourselves. The enclosed photos was taken by us on March the 7th, 2020, showing a small flat-bottom John boat that could not pass through the area, having to go under the dock of the homeowner in the area. This presents a large danger to the boaters as well as risk for the homeowner's dock. As homeowners, we are willing to bear our share of the expenses for this project. We are sure that the small group of very vocal opponents to this needed project will come up with reasons to try to again delay or eliminate the needed projects. They will also say that it benefits only the waterfront homeowners. Nothing could be further from the truth. I would estimate that 90% plus of the boaters that use the area are not waterfront owners, but other citizens and guests of the rental properties who enjoy boating in the area. We ask that you proceed with the entire dredging project as soon as possible. Thank you. And it contains 3 photos. And then we have one more. This is of Monica and Jeff Vogel, 427 Cobia Street. We have been property owners in the Sunset Beach for 23 years. The last 6 have been on the water at 727 Cobia Street. In these 6 years, we have witnessed the rapid change in the water depth at South Jinks Creek and the Finger Canal surrounded by the island. It was alarming. We have addressed this situation, have written letters, signed petitions, and voiced our support for dredging, and have so many others. Just when we think it is happening, it is defeated over and over again. It is an emotional and financial nightmare for all of us and a sad circumstance for our island. Recently, we were on our jet skis approximately 1 hour before high tide, and I got stuck on the sandbar. The water was ankle deep. We see countless boats, jet skis, and yes, even paddle boaters get stuck. It is dangerous. Then we suddenly hit a sandbar and lurch to a stop. There are no fish, no dolphins back there in any of our waters. What is it going to take to get this done? Please explain this to all of us affected by the delays. We bought a home on the water. Was that my 3 minutes up?
No.
Okay. We bought a home on water with deep water access. We installed a boat lift, purchased a boat and wave runners. Financially, this is no longer a selling point. We do not plan to live on a lagoon. It is very frustrating. Please explain the problem in this time. If this is not happening, please let the homeowners know so we can sell while our properties still retain some of their value. We keep hearing what can't happen and why. Litatory rights of the beachfront owners. Don't the other homeowners have litatory rights too? We are hearing it is the compatible sand disposal. We are down to our last and only option, which is nearshore, offshore sand disposal. It is a proven method and the sand will disperse over a 6-month period of time with no impact to the beach. The quality of sand is completely compatible with the beach sand. The spoils will not be disposed of using the near offshore method. The spoils will be placed on the spoil islands, which have been used in the past. Timing is an essence. The permit has an expiration date, and so does the state grant, June 30, 2021, which is covering 2/3 of the cost of the project. Dredging would need to start this dredging season, fall 2020, or we may be forced to seek an extension. It is imperative our mayor, reading it on the
30
show.
seconds.
It is imperative our mayor and our council members get this done. Thank you for your time. And that is all that has been wrote in that I have received from the clerk to read. Thank you. All right.
By my calculations on the late emails and the ones that you read, we had over 34 dredging and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 against dredging.
Okay.
And the 6 against dredging were not waterfront property owners.
All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Mayor.
Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
That can't be considered a viable survey of the property owners.
I did not say it was.
He didn't mention anything about a survey.
That's
ma'am.
fine.
Yeah.
I just did.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Next up, moving on, we are town administrator report. Mr. Marziano.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep this brief. I'm also going to go ahead and admit the members of staff waiting to come in so I can streamline this a little bit. Just want to mention the town hall hours. We're still Monday through Wednesday. Regular hours at that point, 8:30 to 5 is when town hall's open. We're happy to meet the public outside. We're happy to take appointments to do so. We are here to answer phones. We are forwarding our phones. I think we're still doing a pretty good job of tending to the needs of the public that need us when they need us. And we're looking for ways to always improve that and streamline it. But under these circumstances, I think we're doing a really wonderful job, and I really appreciate the staff getting out there and doing what they do. In that vein, I'm also looking at ways to improve communications with the town via some apps, things like SeeClickFix or TextMyGov or things like that. So I'm researching options for people to be able to electronically communicate problems to us just because they can't drop by and talk to us. So I'll be looking at that for the next couple of weeks. And finally, for me, just a reminder, I'm on vacation for the next week. So I will see you guys next Tuesday. Lisa will be in charge the next 2 days. And from Thursday through Monday, Ms. Drop will be assisting y'all if you need any help. Anybody have any questions for me?
Mr. Administrator.
No.
Mr. Nerd. Ms. Harris.
None.
Mr. Corbett.
Enjoy your vacation.
Thank you.
Phillips.
I'm good.
Okay, Mr. Mormon.
No, none for me, thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Hiram.
Thank you.
Moving on to our departmental reports, planning and inspections.
Okay.
Big Bird.
So what we've had a lot going on. Obviously, there's been a lot of changes you all have seen around town. Probably the biggest thing to touch base on here is the sanctuary has begun the logging operation on the first 40 acres. And from talking with them today, it'll be about another 30 days before they finish the logging that's taking place on that site, before the contractor, JP Russ, gets in there to do the actual clearing and grading. The towns at Seaside has completed their logging operation, and it looked from a site visit today that they were doing some staking and preparing to get the grading crew out there to begin the process of getting their site ready. I also met on site today at Sunset Ridge to review some stormwater issues. I say stormwater issues, some sedimentation erosion control issues from some of the neighbors, talked directly with Bill Clark Homes representative, as well as representatives with JP Russ, and they are working on remedying what they can within the bounds of their permits and what is required, and also dealing with the fact that we're at like 200% of our yearly rainfall already here at the beginning of July. So they were beginning the cleanup efforts this afternoon. We've had a few code enforcement items over the past, let me go back. Arteza Village also moving forward. You'll see the brick facades going up, all the buildings are up. It's moving along at a very nice pace there. And
We lost Mr. Rademacher.
there we go. They're anticipating being ready for occupancy of building 1 coming this fall, and it appears as though they're probably going to meet that benchmark pretty easily over there. It's definitely keeping our inspectors busy with the amount of inspections taking place there. Code enforcement, we've had several minor items that have come to resolution. Obviously, we're continuing to do our sign pickups, for the small portable signs that you see around town, or they may be attached to a telephone pole. We've had a couple non-permitted activities that have been reported to us that we've been working to get resolution on and have done that. We're also working with a cleanup effort on one of our commercial properties, and they are making excellent progress on that. And we are moving forward very nicely on that project. We've completed the upgrading of the planning inspections as well as the stormwater management portions of the website. They're streamlined, easier access, a lot more information for the public out there. Trying to keep things that you see in my weekly reports up to date on that website, including the number of homes that are under construction right now, going out and taking various photos of the construction projects that we have taking place across town, just trying to keep the public in touch with our department and up to date, you know, since most of our folks probably aren't driving out to the commercial site or are second home property owners who may not be here while a lot of these changes are taking place. Just keeping everything transparent. So permitting has continued to be strong. There's a lot of people digging around, looking for information for new homes, new lots, a lot of new surveys going on out there in our undeveloped portions of town. Our inspectors are staying extremely busy right now. And of course, that's all before we even have any of our new projects coming online. So they're humming. We're all humming in the office. We've started our CRS preparations, which is for the community rating system. I've touched on that several times over the past few months in my weekly updates, but I've disseminated information to the various folks within Town Hall who have portions of the report that I need to have to get to the CRS folks when they come in November, so we can maintain our CRS rating and keep those insurance rates low for the citizens here in Sunset Beach. So we are making progress on that, communicating with the many different agencies, the libraries, the county, the individual golf courses, and compiling all the information and data that we need to present to the folks with CRS in the future. There was going to be a planning board meeting via Zoom on July 16th, but due to some technical and scheduling issues, we are postponing. That, sorry about that. And plan on reconvening that meeting in August, where I do anticipate a resubmittal of the subdivision of Bird's Watch that was originally submitted last fall for the 49 lots inside Sea Trail. So there's a lot of activity that continues to take place, and you know, assuming the economy holds out, we're going to be extremely busy for the next several years, to say the least. If you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Anybody got any questions for Mr. Rademacher?
No, thanks, Todd.
Ms. Harris, you have anything?
None.
Mr. Phillips?
Thanks for the efforts, Todd. No, I'm good.
Mr. Borman?
Thanks, Todd.
Corbett?
Yeah, just a commercial. The addition of the detailed information and plots and maps on the new developments that are now posted on the website is very helpful, very useful. If people want to, our citizens should be aware you can get the information very quickly by just going to the website.
Is that it?
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Todd. We appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Next up will be our Stormwater Department, Mr. John Mashon.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. We're still working, as you know, the 2nd and 3rd Street project. We had a good day today. They installed over 70 feet of pipe. The installation work is not quite as deep, so it's moving along rather nicely. We have some inclement weather in the forecast this week, so hopefully we'll still be able to continue to move forward and wrap that project up. We're on the final stretch on 3rd Street. Everything's been completed along down 2nd and North Shore East. So we'll continue to push forward on that project. And the plan right now is to start next week the Shoreline Drive East culvert replacement. So there might be some overlap with the two projects going on at the same time. Not quite sure how that's going to work out, but we're trying to wrap up the work on the island as quickly as possible and get off the island for the balance of the tourist season. Along with it, I would like to say that there are a number of residents that that live in the area that we've been working that have been wonderful, actually supportive of the JP Russ crew that's working out there. It's obvious to those folks and myself that they're doing a quality job of construction and taking their time and making sure the pipe is laid properly, straight, and sealed properly. So we shouldn't have any problems with that for a long time. So anyway, that's all I have unless we have any questions.
Anyone have any questions? Councilman Phillips, you have anything for Mr. Michon?
No, sir.
Councilman Borman?
No, thank you, John.
Councilman
Yes, sir.
Borman?
Nothing. Thank you.
Councilman Harris? Councilwoman Harris?
Nothing, thanks.
Councilman Nern?
Nothing. Thank you, John.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Michon. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Moving
good
on, moving on to the Public Works. We have Mr. Dustin Graham, our Public Works Director.
I'd just like to add that starting Wednesday morning, around 5 o'clock, we will start spraying for mosquitoes. At that time, we'll be spraying between 5 and 6 o'clock. The town is broke up in 5 zones. So Monday is the island, Tuesday is the northern part of Sea Trail, the other side of Calabash Creek, and Sugar Sands and Kings Trail. The third part is behind Town Hall, Shoreline Woods, and Station Trail. And the fourth place is the other side of Bonaparte Retreat 2, Ocean Harbor, Oyster Bay, behind 20 Lakes, Metcalf, and the rest of Sea Trail is due there. And the fifth is Friday. That's Sandpiper, Windfall, and Cape Side is on the schedule for them. So we will be starting that Wednesday morning.
Anything else?
That's all.
Okay.
Just thank you. DPW went out and cleared the right-of-way trees and bushes out near on Main Street West near 37th.
Yes.
And actually enabled them to create about 4 legal parking spots rather than using the bicycle lanes. So that was very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Nern, you got anything for him?
Nothing. Thank you, Dustin.
Councilwoman Harris, you have anything?
Nothing, thank you.
Councilman Borman?
No, thank you.
Councilman Phillips?
Just say thank you for all the work you're doing as we're moving restrooms around and all that fun stuff as we go through this process. Again, all of us, we really do appreciate our staff.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dustin. We appreciate
Sure.
you, sir. Next up will be our Police Department, Mr. Ken Claymore. We have him on Zoom. Go ahead, Ken.
Good evening. In addition to the report, if there's any questions on that, I'll be happy to answer those at any time. I provided a document, which I know the town administrator said he was going to share either on the screen or I don't know if you have that. But I wanted to give you a parking ticket summary of the activities, the citations that have been written by the officers in the period from Memorial Day weekend through the 4th of July weekend. So basically May 22nd, that Friday, to today, July 6th. As you can see there, are the numbers that we have generated for the various violations: bike lane, parallel parking, sidewalk violations. Now that parallel parking, I'll note, is it also would cover wrong directions. So if somebody is traveling on the east end and zips across the center line to take an open space on the other side of the street, that's covered under parallel parking, which is the most of the violations here that you'll see. But a total of 278 citations were issued in this period. So they've been out there as much as they possibly can. We had extra officers on the 4th of July weekend out there on the UTV trying to educate people if we see them parking in error, or at least leave a ticket or a reminder on the windshield that they did not park as they were supposed to. As you see from the numbers there, out of the 278, 148 of those have been made good so far. Are there any questions on that document?
One question, Chief.
Yes,
Go ahead, Councilman Borman.
So you treat the golf carts the same as a car?
Yes, so a golf cart that would have a registration, because the only way it should be out there is if it's registered and insured and street legal as a low-speed vehicle. We'll be able to know who the owner is or the rental company, and if they are parked improperly, if they're on the sidewalk, if they're blocking the bike lane, if they're not parallel with the roadway, we leave a citation, usually on the steering wheel, because a lot of the rentals still have the clip on the steering wheel, like the where the golf scorecard would go.
Right,
So
right.
those are treated the same. Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Councilman Phillips, you have anything?
No, sir.
Councilman Corbett?
Just curious, the golf carts have been running wild on the island, and I've seen some of them on the other side on the mainland too. Have we had any golf cart accidents that have been reported?
I'm gonna find some wood. I'm gonna find some wood to knock on because we have not, and I hate talking about those things because then I don't want to jinx ourselves. But we've been very fortunate that we have not. It's been well over a year since we had one, and it was in the off season. Ironically, some people that were intoxicated took a turn without slowing down. It was overweighted and it rolled. But fortunately, we haven't had any of those instances. I know myself. I make contact with a lot of people on golf carts. And the most common violation that I see, and it just breaks my heart, but I'll watch families carrying infants or carrying little babies, toddlers in their laps while they're driving down Main Street. And I stop and talk to them and remind them that it has to be treated just like a vehicle. You wouldn't operate your car holding your infant in the passenger seat on the lap of one of the parents. So you shouldn't do it on a low speed vehicle either. So we've been fortunate that we haven't had any, and hopefully we don't going forward.
Thank you. I agree.
Councilman Mayor, do you have anything for Ken?
Thanks, Ken. Great job over the holiday weekend. Make sure all the officers know how much they're appreciated.
Councilwoman,
Certainly.
do you have anything?
I certainly will, and I know that Mr. Corbett had
I would
opened
just
with.
like to say that the golf
One
course.
second. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ken.
I'm sorry. I know Mr. Corbett had opened with some comments about chasing fireworks, and I know the guys did everything they could this weekend in responding to complaints and seeing them, from afar and trying to drive and track them down, which if you've done it, it's tough. I mean, if you see it go off and you think it's not that far away, it could be a lot further than you think. And trying to track it down in the backyard of someone's property, we don't have the authority just to trespass on someone's property to see if they're shooting off fireworks. So it becomes problematic. But kudos to the guys that worked this weekend. It was Sergeant McKeithen's shift. They did a very good job of curtailing as much as they possibly could.
Councilwoman Harris, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, I would just like to add to Councilman Corbett's comments that the golf carts are alive and well, especially on North Shore Drive West and especially after dinner time. They are having a really good time of it. And thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Next up will be our fire department reports. Our Fire Chief, Paul Hussenmeyer.
All right, good evening. I got a few updates from the fire department and then a few things from the beach as well, but oh, you got it. But I'd like to thank you all for acknowledging and thanking the staff, not only the fire department and the beach patrol, for what they've been doing and have done and will continue to do, because it does mean a lot to them hearing that from you all. But real quick on the fire department side of things, we are pretty busy. The numbers in this report from one of the months where we were a little bit slower, not making as many EMS runs, but the wheels are turning now. And we've had 10, 15 runs a day pretty regularly. So things are happening. The crews are also putting a lot of time in training. We've got some new full-time staff, so they're putting elbow grease into that. We're working on the new fire apparatus specs, and hopefully here in the next month or so, we'll have more to present to you and get that project moving forward. And we have, well, the past couple of days have been slow, so I'll knock on wood too, like the police chief, but we've had quite a few boat calls over the last several weeks. People stuck in the different creeks, couple people lost, a couple people stuck in the creeks prior to a storm rolling through. So we've been pretty active on the water as well. Now switching gears to the beach patrol, we had, and I think most of you probably know about it, we had about a week and a half stint in June where Portuguese man-o-war swarms kept washing in every day. That, knock on wood as well, has seemed to gone away, so that's a good thing. We had a couple handfuls of different stings from those swarms, but again, hopefully they stay away. Probably seen on some of the social media pages and some of our reports as well, several different sharks that have been in tide pools when the tide's going out.
She don't like sharks.
Oh, she doesn't like 'em. Also sightings near shore. That's one thing. Well, one thing we definitely can't control is where they're at and how close to shore and when they come about. But yes, sharks live out in the ocean, as we know, and we'll certainly try to help if something gets close. July 2nd, I think it was last Thursday, we had a storm pop up mid-afternoon. It popped up. We saw it coming, but many of the folks on the beach didn't. And one of the challenges with the beach is it's been busy, and I'll talk a little bit more about the busyness in a minute. But July 2nd, mid-afternoon, storm popped up, and when we saw people bailing off the beach as that storm was coming in, and there was probably upwards of over 50 cabanas that got wrecked and destroyed during that storm. So we had staff, firefighters, called Public Works back in to help us clean that up because it overwhelmed everybody out there. And it wasn't specific to vendors. It wasn't specific to private cabana owners. It was across the whole strand, and it was a mess. It took us a couple hours to clean up, but overall, it was a challenge. Nobody got hurt, and we got it cleaned up. Last year on July 4th, we counted 274 cabanas. This year, it was right around the same. The one biggest difference we've noticed this year is we're seeing that 270 range of cabanas more regularly. So that kind of gives us an indication of how busy the beach is and the vastness. Like I drove the beach yesterday. I was out there for several hours on July 4th. Deputy Chief Adams and Childers have been out there as well with Beach Patrol. But, one of our challenges is there's not a lot of room for cabanas. So dealing with that, and sometimes folks that aren't real happy because there's no place to put it. But the beach is definitely busy. One other challenge that we've faced, especially Beach Patrol, myself, Deputy Chief Adams, Deputy Chief Childers, is the one-way accesses. I know the intent is good, but we've had different hand signals given to us, different variations of language directed towards us. We've had Beach Patrol trying to help people understand the walkways and tell them they're one way. And they get verbally accosted as well. We've heard different stories about people fighting, arguing, even some shoving matches on the accesses. So that's certainly disheartening in these times and a challenge for us. But we're doing what we can. But the reality is, I'm not sure how effective it is. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Councilman Mayor, do you have anything for Paul?
Well, I'm going to touch on the one-way walkways. This is definitely not working. The chief did not mention tonight, but there was a report of an older woman pushing a child because the child was going against the one-way. I can only assume, but I would think the child's parents were there also. Well, you can't blame a young child for following their parents. And I think that's just terrible. close to fist fights out there. Hiram had asked that the citizens not try and police the one-way walkways, and apparently that didn't help. I think we need to relook at that and make the walkways both ways.
What is your recommendation, Chief?
Based off of what I've witnessed and the report from the 2 deputy chiefs and other beach patrollers, and I would recommend getting rid of them at this point, because I'm not sure the value of it is outweighing all the controversy and arguments out there, unfortunately.
Councilwoman Harris, do you have anything for Fire Chief?
No, I do not, but I do not agree with getting rid of the one-way walkways.
Councilman Phillips, do you have anything for Chief Paul?
So much like the last meeting, that's the perspective I had, is we're trying to do something that's not enforceable and it's going to create friction within our community. While I agree that the one-way walkways are great in theory, they're clearly not working. I'd also like to point out, as we well know, that some of our public servants are facing increased scrutiny. I think citizens just in general are wound pretty tight. So I think this point is definitely a point of contention within the community, much like it is in the grocery stores, which doesn't work there either. So I think that the negatives at this point are outweighing the positives. So I would be in favor of removing the one-way accesses.
Councilman Borman, do you have anything?
I understand the sentiment wanting to remove the source of conflict. But at the same time, I have concerns when I look at the positive numbers that I see even for Sunset Beach, which, I mean, if we look back 2 council meetings ago or 3 council meetings ago, we were at 0. I think the latest I've seen is something about 50, which, people might say is not a big number considering the population of the town, but at the same time, it's a big change over a very short period of time. And the reason for the one-way walkways was to try and keep that number as low as we can. I'm really torn. Well, I want to keep people as COVID-free as I can. What I keep hearing about the conflict on the walkways is just ridiculous to me. I can't understand why some people behave the way that they do. I'm not sure how to resolve that conflict between wanting to be safe at the same time not wanting to have the conflicts that seem to be occurring.
Anything else? You finished, Councilman Borman?
No. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We're going to talk about it in the
Yeah, in the state of
in the
emergency
state of
order.
emergency. See where we go.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Paul.
Next up is our finance department, Ms. Tara Drop.
So I have the May budget to actual report in here. Is there any questions on that portion? Because I have some other comparisons that I added in with this report as well. But just the budget to actual report, are there any questions on that?
Councilman Borman or Councilman Phillips, do you have any questions?
No.
No questions.
Councilwoman Harris, do you have anything?
No questions.
Okay. Both for Councilman Harris.
Do you?
I'm going to go into the comparison a little bit too.
Okay, but overall, at this point, it doesn't look nearly as bad as we were projecting 2 or 3 months ago.
No. So our accommodation tax, if we match it to, it's basically April that we have right now and May. So in June, I typically get some like leftover May rentals. And then in July, I get the June rentals. So I won't really know until the end of July what we actually brought in for accommodation tax for June. But where we stand right now, we're down about 42,000 from where we were at that same, like this same snapshot in time to last year. That's about how much revenue we lost just in accommodation tax, which that's, you know, we shut down for 2 months for short-term rentals. You know, we kind of curbed expenses and things like that. So we're really sitting okay with accommodation tax. Within general fund, the sales and use tax, we are actually, I have gotten April's in. And in the next couple of weeks, I'll have May. But right now, we're sitting at $74,920 higher in revenue than we were at the same exact time last year. So depending on where May and June come in, I think that we're really going to be on track. Now, part of that is because I'm very conservative in forecasting the revenues. You know, we get the league projections and things like that, but like the best practice is to keep it, you know, don't go to the top of the line because you don't know for sure. These are just like forecasts. So it's better to be conservative on the revenues and, you know, kind of overstate the expenditures so that you come in at a good spot at the end of the year. And that really was beneficial to us this year, I think. So from what we were last year, we are up almost 75,000.
Good.
Yeah.
Very
And across the
encouraging.
state, I think that that's pretty much, it's not as bad as what they were projecting for April. And April's when we were completely shut down. So are there any questions about these numbers?
Councilman Phillips or Councilman Borman, either one of y'all have anything you'd like to add or any questions for Mr. Drop?
Not I.
No, nothing from me.
Okay, Councilman Corbett.
Did the merit pay go out yet? We,
merit pay.
1st of July, you know, the new budget season, and we approved
Right.
up
So
to
we
a
do,
3% merit pay. So I'm just wondering when will.
If
those-
I can answer, I'll answer that if you don't mind.
Sure.
We haven't done the employee evaluations yet. Employee evaluations will take place in July and August. And at the end of the evaluations, that's when we assign merit.
Okay. Is that retroactive to the?
It's retroactive back to July 1.
Back to July 1. Okay, good.
there's one other thing that I do want to mention, and that is the recycling renewal applications. It came in almost exactly in line with what I had given you in January as far as a projection for what the cost was going to be to the customers. In that report, I said that the mainland would be 85 and that the island would be 115. And that's exactly where it's going to be on the form that we're going to be sending out. And that's still a considerable savings because if it was on the mainland and they went through Green for Life, it'd be $140 a person, and we're doing it for 85. And they wouldn't do weekly for the island. So.
Councilwoman
think
Harris,
that's
do you have
it.
any questions for Mr. Drop?
None, thank you.
Councilman Nern, do you have anything?
Your numbers are very encouraging.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Tara.
All right, moving on to old business, our state of emergency, events and operations. I know everything comes up through the council, but I just have a couple of recommendations I would like for y'all to consider. One was being with our concert series with the things that's continually ongoing. I know that we have a concert, if I'm not mistaken, around the 17th, 18th of August. We meet again on the 3rd. We virtually have to pay 2 weeks ahead of time, not knowing what the governor is actually going to do as far as big groups, and probably looking at right now from what we're thinking, it's probably not going to change much. I think that we need to look to maybe going ahead and canceling the concert series. And also the way the office has been running, the same thing there. I think that we need to reconsider on August the 3rd. At that meeting, we can look back at, but as far as what's going on now with the way town hall's running, I think that it would be best interest for us to continue just like it is there. And other than that, let's open it up and let the Councilman Phillips, do you have anything you'd like to add or things you want to discuss as far as the state of the order?
My only question, because I don't have it right in front of me, is when is the theoretical last date of the concerts? Does anybody have that offhand?
Ms. Cindy, you have that?
I've got it. The last day of the concerts is August 19th. That was gonna be the last concert. And since we don't have a second meeting in July, if we need to figure out what to do with the 5th and the 12th. But yeah, the last concert would have been the 19th. We had hoped that we could schedule a few more after that. I personally don't see that happening. I really don't think we're going to be out of this at all. And there's still no telling what the governor is going to decide as far as gatherings and whatnot. But I would rather err on the side of caution on this one. This, that'd be the last concert, not really worth just having one concert. Just hanging out there.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, as much as I hate to do it, I'm tending to agree with you on this, and agree with Shannon on that. And then the only other one that I would want to do is the to jump ahead a little bit, or does everybody want to do this one first and then get to the walkways, or how do we want to do it?
We'll go with this one first, and then we can go from the walkways.
Okay, sounds good. I'm good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Councilman Borman.
So we also have an August 1st, first deadline for our sunset, right? We have to make a decision about?
At the 1st of August, yes, sir.
Yep.
August, that's what's kind of the drop dead date, right?
We've asked the Sunset at Sunset chairman to come and brief us at our August meeting and make a recommendation of go, no go at that time. That's what we asked.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So other than that, I agree about the concerts as well, that it's not sounding good. Especially to have one final concert at the end, if at all possible. So it probably makes sense to just cancel it for the year.
Thank you. Councilwoman Harris, your stance on that as far as the concert series?
I agree with canceling the concert series, and I also agree with the office.
Okay. Councilman Aaron.
I agree. The concert series this summer is a wash. It's a little disappointing to me because we went to every concert. Especially sad about the one on August 19th. That's my wife's birthday, and it would have been a cheap date.
Sad to say, I also agree. And I just hope our town administrator doesn't come back and say he told us so, because that's what his prediction was at the beginning of this process. But I agree, it's best to do that. But my question is, that's concerts.
This concert, yes.
Are we also have the discussion of any changes on special events?
Like that. I would say anything special event wise, we should probably go ahead and include that, because again, it falls under the governor's numbers. We don't see that changing dramatically as far as anything goes, but of course that's up to y'all. But if we bring it up, which it's obvious what the vote's going to be, but if we bring it up, that'll be basically be canceling all special events up through our August 6th or August the 3rd meeting. But in regards to the concert series, with us having to pay ahead of time, that it'll be continuously wiped out for this year. And hopefully we'll be able to reach out in 2021 and continue that. That being said, do I have a motion?
So you're saying cancel special events?
Cancel special events through
until the August 3rd
to our August 3rd meeting. Yeah. But in regards to the cancel series, because we have to pay up front, we'll go ahead and cancel it for the rest of the year. Do I have a motion for that?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, Councilman Phillips,
Aye.
Councilman Borman.
Aye.
Councilman Nern,
Aye.
Councilwoman Harris,
Aye.
and Councilman Corbett.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to the next thing, as far as the office, continuing the office schedule that we have set now that the administrator's been doing, that we have been able to work straight through. I don't think we've missed much of a beat there. In regards to that, Councilman Borman, do you have anything to add or any questions?
No, I agree with the town administrator's recommendation there.
Okay, Councilman Phillips,
Agreed.
Councilman Corbett,
I agree.
Councilman Harris, Councilwoman Harris,
I agree.
and Councilman Nern.
I agree.
Do I have a motion that will continue the office schedule and we will relook at this on August the 3rd at our next meeting?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Nern,
Aye.
Councilwoman Harris,
Aye.
Councilman Phillips,
Aye.
and Councilman Borman.
Aye.
Okay, next up, we'll move on to the walkways. Well, we have reached out to our fire chief. He has gave his professional opinion on that. Many questions have been sent. We've all read and seen some of the things that have happened out there, which is disheartening through all the stuff we're going through, but it is something that we do need to address at this time. So Councilman Corbett, I'll let you start. Would you like to give your opinion on that? I know we briefly discussed it when Paul briefed, but for this part, let's go ahead and finish it up.
This is a tough issue. I don't like the idea of throwing in the hat and saying, well, we're not going to do anything at all to try to have any measures to control the possibility of the COVID-19 virus spreading. There are very few things that we can do. There are very few things that we can do within our resources and within the size of the community and with the population that we're trying to deal with, the transient population. We are hitting our peak population. The realtors that I have talked to are basically saying that they're slammed, they're full. And so we've got lots of people coming in. So what other options do we have to try to get the message out and keep the message out that we are in a serious health crisis, that all the people need to be responsible, and even if we cannot enforce the rules, it doesn't mean we shouldn't have the rules. I mean, the walkways, we don't have the apparatus set up to enforce them. By our state of emergency still, violating the walkway is a class 2 misdemeanor. Now, there's no way in the world we're going to enforce that. But it doesn't mean that it's voluntary. And I would say, and I put this out for Beach Patrol, Fire Department, staff, DPW, the full staff, and even the council members, is that that's the rule for everybody's health. And even if we cannot enforce it, we should be encouraging it. I mean, it's not just at our level that there are rules that we have out there that we can't enforce. The face mask from the governor is also one of them. Chief Claimer put out a good email today explaining what the police could do and what the police could not do, even though it's a mandate by the governor. And just to go one step further of precedence in terms of passing rules and laws, even if you can't enforce them. And one of them is the code for handling the US flag. It's a law in terms of how you handle it, how your procedures are, how you treat it, what the protocols are, but there is no punishment associated with it. And people do not get punished, even at the national level, for disrespecting the flag. But it is a national law, and it is for the good of all the people, and it's a statement of our nation, respecting for our nation. The point I'm trying to get to is, even if we can't enforce the law, we don't need to discourage the law, but we need to have something out there that shows that we are serious about dealing with COVID-19. And with that, I'm inclined to keep it on the books, the one-way walkways, even if there's not a way to enforce it. But we sure shouldn't tell people it's voluntary. Okay. I would just be happy to go ahead and zap somebody too with a
Councilman Nerd.
misdemeanor.
Well, I said from the beginning this wouldn't be enforceable, and it's not. And although I agree with John to a point, if having those one-way walkways is causing fights between whoever it is, guests, residents, whoever, and having people be adults angry enough to push a child, I believe that we should discontinue the one-way walkways.
Councilwoman Harris.
I absolutely agree with Councilman Corbett. Our citizens deserve our protection. They are the ones that are paying the bill for the beach patrol, for everything that's good out there on our beach. It's our citizens, but it's our citizens that are being forced to stay at home because our tourists will not obey the rules. If we need to put more signage out there, then let's do it. But we need to make sure that Sunset Beach is serious about COVID-19.
Okay.
I need to add one comment to that.
Go ahead.
Councilman Harris, I have found also that it's our citizens and our residents, both living on the island and off the island, that are violating this too. Maybe not as many as the tourists, but I have found.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but it's our citizens are also not being responsible.
Well, they should be.
Some of them, put it that way.
Councilman Phillips.
I feel like I've already stated my position on this matter, so I think everybody kind of knows where I stand.
Councilman Borman.
I feel like John does, that I don't think we should be throwing in the towel, so to speak. The numbers that I stated before, I hit them again. It's not at 50, it's at 25. But when I look at what's happening in some other places, in Texas, Florida, Phoenix, I've got a daughter in Phoenix where they've ignored the attempts that have been made to keep us safe and to stop the spread, that it reaches a point where they actually have to take a reverse step. You know, you have to go to a point where you close the beaches. And that's happened in California. It's happened in other places. It's happened in Florida, where they've opened up and they've said, let's see how it goes. And they've been sorry. And I don't want to be in the same position here as John commented. There's not much that we can do to force people to respect the seriousness of this. Enforcement's going to come when the virus starts to hit. And when people start to get sick and they have to go to the hospital. I think we should do what we can to help avoid that. So I'm in favor of keeping them one way.
Okay, that being said, to me, I guess the motion on the floor would be to continue to keep the walkways one way. Do I have a motion on that?
So moved.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, Councilman Nern,
No.
Councilwoman Harris,
Aye.
Councilman Corbett,
Aye.
Councilman Phillips,
Nay.
and Councilman Borman.
Aye.
So on that. Anything else in the state of emergency orders other than to continue to follow the direction of our governor's orders? Does any councilman have anything else that we need to address or would like to address? Councilman Phillips, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Councilman Borman,
No, thank you.
Councilman Nern,
No.
Councilwoman Harris,
Nothing, thanks.
and Councilman Corbett?
Actually, yeah. Is there anything we can do other than encouraging? Well, one is a question, do we still just have one bathroom out there on the beach? Do we have thoughts about putting a second one back out there?
We can discuss that. Councilman Nern, your stance on that?
I don't know. I'd say for the convenience of our residents and guests that we should put it back out there. I want to hear Hiram's thought, and Dustin is up here. I want to hear what Dustin has to say.
Go ahead, Dustin.
So far, the bathroom at the gazebo has been well kept clean. I haven't heard any complaints of anything coming in town hall here. Cornelia is out there twice a day, once in the early first thing in the morning, then she goes in about 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoons, actually about 1 or 2 in the afternoons, and cleans them again. The park, she cleans the first thing in the morning, comes back at the same time after she gets through with the gazebo, cleans it, but I haven't heard any complaints about it.
Are the supplies being well taken care of so
Yes,
far? Haven't had any
so
problems
far.
with that?
No problems with that so far.
Okay. Councilwoman Harris, do you have anything? What's your stance here?
I don't, and I'm okay with that.
Okay. Councilman Corbett?
As long as that one's working fine, I'm good with that. I just want to know whether we need another one out there or not.
I haven't heard of anybody's having any problems waiting in line or anything like that at all.
Councilman Phillips, do you have anything for him? Or your stance on that?
I would be fine putting the second one back if we felt like it's necessary. I think if for one thing, when I've been down that way, there are lines forming at certain times. Not to say there wouldn't be a line formed if the second one's there, but it might eliminate some of that and give people a better opportunity to spread out versus standing in line. That's it.
Councilman Borman?
So if there haven't been complaints that would be driving it, I mean, I would be okay with it if there were some complaints coming in saying there's not enough capacity or due to use that they're not clean or something like that. I'm not sure what would be driving it.
Hiram, are you getting anything in your feedback?
Oh, you heard anything?
I haven't heard anything on my end, and I'm not sure if Joanne or Cindy have when they're taking phone calls. My recommendation, however, would be not to put it back if we're trying to limit the surfaces being utilized by the public. That's half the intent of the one-way walkways too, is to limit interaction between people. I understand Councilman Phillips' idea about the lines forming, and it'd be a good idea to have a second option out there should that become an issue. But I have not heard about long lines. I've not heard anything from Beach Patrol having problems. I've not heard anything from Public Works. So it's up to y'all, really. It's 6 1, half dozen the other at this point. But if we're hopefully peaking for our tourist season and things start slacking off in the next few weeks, I mean, not next few weeks, but about August time, assuming schools do go back into session, I don't really see the need if its capacity is being handled at this point.
So can I speak to that real quick? My other thought on that is, if you have another option, you're splitting up the same number of people are going to use the restrooms no matter how many we have out there. So if you give them two options, yes, it's more surface, but there's less density of population going into those same number of restrooms. That's my main thought with that. So.
I understand. I just know that from the past experience, most people who go to the Main Street one, if they're not already on Main Street or going to their parking space, it's only because there's too much capacity at the other one.
Okay.
So I think it really would help with the overflow problem. I just think at this point, if the one is handling it just fine, I don't really see the need to do the both. But at the same time, like I said, it's 6 1/2 dozen the other. We'll put it out if the council wants us to.
Thank you, Aaron.
Well, our normal situation is to have 2 bathrooms out there to handle the population, the traffic, not just people at the beach, but people who go to the various shops up there, as well as walkers, riders, bikers, and what's there. And so I'm looking at it from the point of view of bringing it back up to the level of service, if we can, that we normally have during the course of the summer for our citizens and our visitors. That's why I asked that.
That being said, then, does anyone want to make a motion that we add the second bathroom back at the gazebo area?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
before we take a vote on that, I think that I misspoke.
Okay.
I am not in favor of putting a second bathroom out there.
Okay.
So having said that,
We'll take a vote now. Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you. With that being said, this will be for the vote for putting the second bathroom back out there at the gazebo. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, Councilman Nern,
Aye.
Councilwoman Harris,
nay.
Councilman Corbett,
Aye.
Councilman Phillips,
Aye.
and Councilman Borman.
Aye.
So Dustin, you just figure out what's be the best day to go back out there with it, whether it be tomorrow. I know the storms are coming.
No, it won't be in the morning. We have to go out and reset one of the moving mats at the gazebo. So we'll have to go out and fix it first.
Maybe for
Reset it.
Wednesday, see how the weather.
Wednesday,
goes from there.
Thursday, I'll have it put in before the end of the week.
Perfectly
How's
fine,
that?
sir. Perfect.
Okay.
If I could interject here real quick, since I'm in another room and I'm taking vacation, Dustin, get with the police chief about doing the barricades again, so you don't have cars in the way while you're trying to back that trailer in.
Yeah, I'll coordinate with Ken on that.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anything else to do with the state of emergency? Councilman Borman, do you have anything else?
No, nothing else.
Councilman Phillips,
Nothing.
Councilwoman Harris,
Nothing, thanks.
Councilman Nern,
Nothing.
and Councilman Corbett.
Nothing.
Okay. Moving on next to our ordinance amendment 9530, our personal watercraft regulations. And just bring that up. And I guess it's Grady. Do we need to bring Grady in here to touch base with everybody? I know he's put the thing out, but is there anything, Grady, that you'd like to say before they have their discussion?
Just real quick, there's a typographical error in the draft that I sent. At the beginning, it says General Statute 106A-174. I have my 0 and the 6 backwards. It should be 160A-174. But other than that, I don't have any changes to make. I'm happy to answer any questions. You all have seen my correspondence on the issue. I believe my opinion is pretty clear on it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer it to the best of my ability.
All right. Councilman Corbett, do you have any questions?
Particularly in terms of the airboat and watercraft. A couple of emails that came in is that the Twin Lakes uses, their contractor uses an airboat to do lake maintenance. And apparently there have been times, or there could be times, where in terms of emergency services, like in a hurricane and a rescue, where airboats might come in. So is it within, how do we accommodate that? How do we make an exception so in time of emergency or for special needs such as treating the Twin Lakes, that we'd still let the airboats in while banning them overall? Is that doable?
Well,
Covered.
under the new amended proposed ordinance, subsection G specifically addresses emergency situations, that the restrictions and the prohibition do not prevent airboat type personal watercraft for law enforcement, military personnel, water rescue personnel, state or federal wildlife protection or research officials, etc., and or other emergency services while engaged in official action. So I think that covers your emergency based stuff. Coming into tonight's meeting, I'd already made clear I don't believe you can, well, I believe you can make exceptions. I don't know that the Twin Lakes scenario is exception worthy. I don't know that I've seen enough on that topic. I'm happy to look at it in further detail if council pleases.
Wasn't, when I read this, isn't there a thing about the speed you can go?
There's no speed if you're going to ban airboats. If you're going to ban them, except for the exceptions in G, there's no need to have a speed for a maximum speed for personal watercraft. There's already a speed limit in this one for non-airboat personal watercraft. You've got to understand, there was already an ordinance in place. We've taken the existing ordinance and we've added the prohibition language to airboats. That's really all our changes have been addressed to, is just focusing on what I understood council was leaning towards, and that was an outright prohibition on airboats, other than the exceptions we've already covered in G.
Well, I have the same concern Councilman Corbett has. That Twin Lakes group are raising funds to try and clean up the lakes. The last email I remember them was if they can't use an airboat in there, then the cost would be a lot more to have that work done when it's being done. So I don't know. I certainly don't want the airboats flying up and down there during night hours, waking people up. But that would not be the case with the Twin Lakes.
Grady, with the Twin Lakes falling under the category that it does in the tourism and all that kind of things, when it being a wildlife protection type deal where they have the alligators and the birds and all that, and they're doing this to preserve this where it can continue, would it fall under this G?
As I understand it, it would not, because again, I'm not sure I've seen the email other than a quick blurb about it with Twin Lakes. There's a lot of email traffic that comes through my desk every day, but if you've got a private contractor maintaining private property to help that subdivision or that development, I don't believe, as currently drafted, subparagraph G would allow for it. I'm happy to go and tweak it. I can ask Lisa or Hiram, I know he's getting ready to go on vacation, to send me any and all information they have about the Twin Lakes situation. And I can carve out, or try to carve out as best I can, an exception type of provision that's not just for Twin Lakes. I mean, I think it needs to be something that would apply for anyone else similarly situated to Twin Lakes.
Yes, sir.
You kind of get in that slippery slope, though, at what point do the Twin Lakes situations that are a legitimate situation get manipulated or tweaked by creative minds to try and get around the prohibition?
So the language in the first paragraph talks about the Atlantic Ocean and all waterways adjacent to that portion of the town within its boundaries. Is Twin Lakes, would that be considered a waterway adjacent to the Atlantic Ocean? Because it's a freshwater lake.
It's not limited to a water body adjacent to Atlantic Ocean. It's the Atlantic Ocean and or all other waterways adjacent to those portions of the town that's within its boundaries and its extraterritorial jurisdiction. So it would apply to water bodies, waterways, Atlantic Ocean, intracoastal waterway, all water bodies within the town's jurisdiction, including its ETJ.
Okay.
But again, if town council wants to carve out some exception for maintenance of retention ponds and Twin Lakes types of scenarios, I'm fine with, taking those comments into account and giving you an updated kind of revised ordinance that addresses that situation specifically. Coming into the night, it was my belief that council was not looking to make such an exception, but I can do so.
Councilman Phillips, do you have something? I know this was your bringing up, so you're probably more knowledgeable than anyone else on it at this
Well,
time.
my initial gut reaction is to still just ban them outright, but I can understand the situation that Twin Lakes is in. So if we feel like there's a way that we could carve out some sort of an exception for wildlife management or something like that by professional service, licensed insured professional service, I think something like that's reasonable.
So do I.
So do you.
Yeah, same.
Councilwoman Harris?
I agree with Councilman Phillips.
Okay. And Councilman Borman? So I guess for that.
I have another question though.
Go ahead.
And I need somebody to help clarify language. We're talking about personal watercraft.
Which page, John?
It's page 33, paragraph B at this one. They're talking about the headway speed as limitation between within the intercoastal waterway, the main channel through Tubbs Inlet from the south end of Big Narrows to the intercoastal waterway, the finger canals and the channel supplying the finger canals. Is the Big Narrows, is that Tubbs Inlet? Does anybody know what the Big Narrows are?
I'm fairly certain that was already in your code. I didn't.
It wasn't a code. And what, as a result of putting in the revisions, I actually read the code. And there's two things that sound to me, and I'm not sure if I'm interpreting this right, but when you're going through the main channel through Tubbs Inlet from the south to the end of the big, I don't know what. Is this telling us you have to maintain headway speed when you leave the intercoastal and head down to the to Tubbs Inlet? Is that what it means? And if that's so,
Let me remind everyone. Let me say, in our revisions to the existing ordinance, I didn't touch B.
Oh, I didn't say you did.
You've got to remember.
Yeah.
You got to remember that we have regulated personal watercraft, but in this proposed ordinance that we've drafted, nothing's changed with personal watercraft other than me adding the outright prohibition on airboats. So the personal watercraft here has nothing to do with airboats. It has everything to do with other personal watercraft that doesn't include airboats. And if you look at the red line, I mean, we didn't touch anything other than what was necessary to try and accomplish the prohibition on airboats, which would be new A and new G. Everything else other than the opening preamble, which we also tweaked, stayed the same. So
I understand that. And what I'm saying is with this one, I read B and I read C, and I'm asking for anybody's expertise. Does our code say that you have to keep headway speed once you leave the intercoastal waterway hitting south towards Tubbs Inlet and the Finger Canals? And if so, the next part was says, we can only operate the personal watercraft from sunrise to sunset on any given day. And that means the people who go out night fishing inside our city limits are not allowed to go out night fishing inside our city limits, whether it's in the intercoastal or not. So just a complicating question that I'm asked is our ordinance really the way we need it to be, in separate from the question of airboats?
Mr. Mayor,
let me just interject here.
See what Grady says.
I don't believe personal watercraft is defined the way you may be thinking it is. There's these statutes that define it in a particular way. That was beyond the scope of coming into tonight. I'm happy to go back and look at it and see if we need to update things in a manner that might be consistent with the present day.
Well, I think actually before we take it to you, it's something the council ought to talk about, take a look at the code and see if that's really something we want to do.
Councilwoman Harris, go ahead. You had something you needed to say.
yes, I have a question, and maybe I'm not understanding everything that's being said, but all of the waters behind Sunset Beach are no wake zones. Now, does an airboat make a wake? And then earlier in the meeting, someone was talking about a jet ski back behind our air. That's illegal also. All our waters are no wake zones behind Sunset Beach.
Well, to your question on whether an airboat creates a wake, I don't know. I would imagine that there's enough weight in it and it's going fast enough, it's going to create a wake.
It
in
does.
addition to a lot of noise.
Did you hear that, Miss Janet? It does.
It does make a wake.
I would think that it
there's no
does.
wake zone back here in all of our waters, all of our creeks behind Sunset Beach is a no wake zone. It's very hard to enforce because it reverts to the marine fisheries, and they don't have the staff to come enforce it.
Yes, ma'am.
But it is a law.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
I hear you. I was waiting. John's looking at.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's the clarification I was looking for is, as I read it, all of those waters are no wake zones. And
correct.
And it's another issue of having a code out there that does not get enforced. And that's basically all I wanted to clarify. But also part of the code was you also can't operate at night out there. Goes against a lot of local traditions.
Councilman Borman, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I understand the conflict in the language and what seems to be going on out there, but I wasn't prepared at this point to start discussing the rest of the watercraft out there. I understand the Twin Lakes issue And if there's some way around that, then if we can address it, fine. The airboat itself, to me, is a nuisance. And even at low, no wake speeds, it's still loud. And to try and define it around a wake, I think is not going to get us to where we want to be.
So let's go back to the airboat deal. Go ahead.
May I just talk about this enforcement business?
Yes.
I've heard this tonight. You've got the means by which to enforce it. Does that mean that the chief is going to be able to enforce every single time that there's a violation of the one directional lane or anything else? No, I don't think there's any police force, even the New York City police force, is going to be able to correct or enforce every single rules infraction. However, if you're just working off the assumption that you're not going to enforce this, then you shouldn't be passing it. If you're passing a law thinking that it's never going to be enforced, then why are you doing it? Just as a general deterrent? I believe that by passing it, you've got the means by which for it to be enforced. Doesn't mean it's going to be enforced every single time, just like the fireworks. You're not going to catch the people popping off fireworks in violation of your ordinances every single time. But the deterrent will be there that if they are caught, they're going to be penalized. They're going to get an infraction. And so I do think that your ordinance, if it's amended or even if it's not, is enforceable. Does it mean you're going to catch them every time? No. Just like a no wake zone. I see it happen all the time up here in Riceville Beach. Well, sometimes there's people enforcing it, but I see them violating no wake zones all the time when I take out my boat. So I just think that if you're looking at it from the standpoint of you're not going to enforce it, that's a problem. You should be passing laws that you intend to enforce to the best that your department has the capability of doing so.
Yes, sir. It's definitely something we got to look into enforcing. I mean, I get numerous complaints all the time from our citizens. So we just need to do whatever. If we need to go back in, we need to add some kind of stipulation. If we need to let you look at that, then we need to look toward letting you do that and just have a continuance of this and not vote on it yet until you've had time for that. But it's definitely something that we need to address for the citizens because it has been brought up many, many times.
Just so I'm clear, maybe we table this amended ordinance for me to, number one, look at the Twin Lakes scenario. And then number two, look at overall updating of the ordinance that addresses Councilman Corbett's concern about it being somewhat dated with the fact that, I mean, there's people out there flounder gigging. I did it growing up. My dad still does it. I get it. So I'm happy to go and kind of look at the ordinance in comparison with the statutes and what I'm hearing today, and maybe have the town council in a position for the August 3rd meeting to consider the airboat, the exceptions for the commercial contractors that are clearing out retention ponds or whatever, and then also updating it with just the non-airboat personal watercraft. Is that what I'm hearing?
Is that what you're looking for?
That sounds good to me.
Councilman Nern?
Sounds good to me.
Councilwoman Harris? That's the
Sounds
direction.
good to me.
Councilman Borman
Okay.
and Councilman Phillips.
Agreed.
Okay, so we'll just table this. We'll relook at this at the third meeting. Once you have a chance to look over all the paperwork, and we'll try to get Lisa to get as much as she can. I know she's only gonna be working a few days, but that still gives us another couple of weeks to get everything to you and try to get you time to look over it.
Well, and I know she'll be doing double duty with Hiram's vacation, so it may have already been sent to me, which is fine. If it has, I'll go back and pull it. If it's not, or if there's other additional information that could be sent to me on it to elaborate, that'll be helpful.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Is there any other issues for me on the agenda tonight?
Town Administrator, do you know of anything else? If not, we can let Mr. Richardson go.
No, Grady, you have a good night.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
sir.
vacation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grady.
Y'all be safe.
Thanks,
Be well.
Grady.
Sir. All right, moving on to new business. We have the Testoration engagement letter. And Ms. Tara Drop, that's one of yours. If you want to come up and read us in what we've already looked at, but let the public know.
So basically what this is a contract with our current auditor because the state, our Office of the State Auditor is being audited and the Department of Treasury's being audited by the state auditor, and that trickles down for our retirement system. So we are one of 49 chosen out of the entire state that have to go through this process of attesting that our orbit records are correct, and the our auditor that we use has agreed to do it for $3,000, which I think is pretty good because it's going to be a lot of work.
And the state's not going to pay for it?
No.
They're telling us to do this, but they're not going to pay for it.
Right. We actually have to submit this engagement letter to the LGC, showing that we have hired somebody to do this.
Do we have any
Well, we have
options?
to do it.
It's kind of like the trickle down. They have to pay for it, so they're going to make us pay for it.
Councilman Borman or Councilman Phillips, do either one of you have any questions for Mr. Drop before we go along with this?
No.
Nothing from me. Nothing from me.
Councilwoman Harris, do you have any questions?
Nothing, thanks.
Okay, Councilman Nern,
No.
Councilman Corbett. With that being said, do we have an approval or look for an approval for the motion for the attestation engagement law with S. Preston Douglas and Associates in a fee of $3,000? Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Councilman Nern,
Aye.
Councilwoman Harris,
Aye.
Councilman Corbett,
Aye.
Councilman Borman,
Aye.
and Councilman Phillips.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the next, we have the short-term rental services. Thing there, if you want to go ahead and discuss that.
Sure.
Ms. Tara
So
Drop.
since VRBO has changed the way that they've done the reporting, they're requiring that they do all reporting for anybody that lists with them and submit one single check. Airbnb does the same exact thing, which proves to be extremely difficult for us to monitor compliance and that we're getting the taxes that we're supposed to get. So last October, I started looking into how we were going to get around doing this. I was contacted by one service that provides this to monitor and manage accommodations, tax rental properties to figure out if the compliance is there. They started really high with how much it was going to cost. And so I kept kicking it down the road because, I mean, it started out at about $35,000 a year. And anything that they had found was like a 40-60 split where we would only get 40% of what they found and they got to keep 60%. Well, that's kind of been, I basically told them no. I had talked to counsel about it and I didn't really have enough information. It was very vague to me. So I found another company as well, and they're kind of competing with each other now a little bit. So basically, they have their own software that they've developed that goes through all Airbnb, all VRBO. There's like 127 platforms that you can list your short-term rental on, which for me, there's no way that I can sit down and go through even one of the platforms to try and figure out. We have approximately 600 rental properties in Sunset Beach. No, 600 listings in Sunset Beach, around 350 rental properties. I only have a record of maybe 200. So there's about 100 out there that I don't know, that I don't have a record for. But they've shown them to me. I don't have the specifics of them because it is a service that you have to pay for. So they also use reviews and the listings, and it's a very in-depth thing that they've done. They have staff that just does that all the time. I know that some of our neighboring towns have one person that all they do is research accommodation tax rental properties for their town, which would be probably close to 35,000 for us to do that, to hire somebody, and then the benefits on top of that. So now that we know exactly how this process works, Hiram and I have both gone through presentations from 2 companies that do this. I'm just kind of wanting to know where council stands with what you think about this type of service, and if I need to keep pushing and seeing if this is something that we want to move forward with, or if this is not something that council's interested in at all.
What's the price looking like now since you got competing
So
companies? How
it's
much
kind
have they
of,
come down?
it's right. So there's different modules and there's like different ways to price it out. The one that I've been most impressed with, they actually have a mobile module where everybody is registered. You can actually, they can pay their accommodation tax right through their phone. And it doesn't pass on this huge cost to the customer. And then, so with that, then they also have the registration process where they send out all the properties with a picture, a snapshot picture of their property listed on VRBO or Airbnb, saying you need to register. We know that you're renting. Here's a picture. We can see what you're doing. And so that mailing for us, what we had talked about doing a mailing would have cost us around $5,000 just to do the mailing, because we would have had to do every property. And then also monitoring and managing and keeping compliance is the other module. Those are the only 3. They had about, 10 to 15 modules, but the customer service, things like that we
Those
don't.
3 are going to be most beneficial for
Right.
us.
And so the one company was around, for all of that was around 20,000. I think it was like 23,000 a year. The other company did a set fee of around 3,500, but in order to gain the compliance and audit those properties, it was like $1,000 per 10 properties, which would end up being, if we did all properties around, or all listings, would have been 60,000. So it's, but you don't have to do all of them. You don't have to do all of the audits, but that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to gain
Sort of
compliance
defeat the
and
purpose if we don't go after all of them.
right. So, but I mean, you could do it over different years. It's kind of like what their thinking was. The second option that I told you, they also are willing to move forward without paying right away. But I mean, within the next couple months, you'd end up having to pay. And then the first option, the one that's around 23,000, they have a 6-month guarantee. So if it looks like they're not working, they give us our money back, they end the program. So that's kind of where I stand with those 2. I haven't really seen any other programs. I do know that the first option does Wilmington and New Hanover County. So I need to reach out to both of them and see how that's working for them and if they're happy with it and things like that. I mean, there's still more work that has to go into this. But before I kept moving forward, I kind of wanted to know.
I know you don't have an exact answer, but let me ask you this. Thinking about that, with the properties that you already know that we're not receiving anything, what kind of funds are you looking at that? I mean, I know you can't give us the right number, but a little scenario. Do you have any ideas off the top of your
Well,
head?
I
what
mean,
it
so
could
if that's
possibly
like
be?
1/3, I mean, we get this year around 400,000 is doing 2/3 of it. So I would
So it could
say,
be
I
well
mean,
worth-
at
it
a
could be
very
well
minimum,
worth.
you're definitely going to get the money back.
So we're
That-
losing about 200 on that rough scenario there. We're losing about 200,000 a year that we're not.
I don't think quite, maybe not quite that much, maybe like 100,000, but
Well, you said
I don't really know. We bring in 400,000. And so we have 2/3 of that. So maybe 150.
So
Somewhere
it
in
would
there.
definitely pay for itself in that scenario. Go ahead, Hiram.
I was gonna say, we also need to recognize 2 other things. One, the amount of how often those may be rented that we're not capturing, but also 2, when someone does a search of our area and they do Sunset Beach, our zip code goes well past our corporate limits. So whether I have not yet determined, I've not been told whether, but either one of the companies that we talked to just looked at our corporate limits of which we are able to assess versus, someone who may be renting their house outside of our town, but still in our zip code.
All right, this is just pertaining to the VRBO and those type of rentals. We're not talking about Sunset Property.
Oh
rentals.
yeah, everything would come into one program.
So are we concerned about compliance with Sunset Property?
Well, it's not necessarily that I'm concerned about their compliance, except for you want it to be uniform across the entire, like everything. So even if it's just somebody renting on their own, or if they're going through an agency, I mean, it would be the agency that would register with all of their properties. So it wouldn't really change it for the homeowner if they're going through an agency. They also would give me a number to sort of have an idea of what I should be getting from Airbnb and VRBO, because there's no way for me to know right now if they're submitting what they should be submitting. But through them having the software that can capture all these different things off of these platforms, can give me kind of a number to match it off of.
So prior to last year, when they changed the way that they were doing it at VRBO, what was the split between a VRBO and Sunset Properties in terms of total? Was it like?
It's cutting out. I don't know what he's saying.
We're not getting good connection for you, Tom. She missed half your
sorry.
speech.
So I was just curious, prior to the change with the way VRBO was paying the tax. I mean, it used to be up to the individual that was renting who would pay the tax, and then VRBO changed it. They were collecting the tax money and they were making the payment. So what kind of has that changed significantly in terms of what you're seeing?
It's really hard for me to say. You mean as far as like what we've been collecting?
Yeah.
It's hard for me to say that because we shut down for 2 months.
Yeah,
So
I understand.
I don't really have a great comparison, and I wasn't here. I've only been here going on 2 years, so I didn't have another whole year before that. I can go back and look. It's kind of hard to. It's one of those that's really hard to forecast.
Right. No, I understand.
I've seen several people on Facebook site. Someone may ask about a rental property in Sunset Beach, and people will answer and say, personal message me and I'll give you the information. And the one even said, you will save the sales tax. And I did get the names of a couple of, I guess, like Airbnb companies, and I gave those to Hiram. So I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't realize that there was so many, but through this research, I found out that there's over 130 different platforms that people rent on. And so that was surprising to me because I didn't know anything about it.
I think it's kind of clear to me that we do not get full coverage or even close. So I think it would be worth your time to dig deeper and come up with sort of a more solid recommendation and justification why it would benefit us.
I mean, my justification for it is that I think that I think that what we would get in revenue would cover the costs. And there's a lot of, it would free up time of staff. There's no way that staff can go through any of these platforms and try to figure out, I wouldn't even know what to do, because the way that it's laid out without having an understanding of their software, I don't know how I could go through and figure out who's renting when or anything like that. So, I mean, that's my only justification, is that it would bring it all into a centralized area. Right now I have a spreadsheet. And I track it through our finance software. But this would, you know, it would streamline it for people to be able to register and pay and everything else in like one spot.
We definitely know what was going on because when we started this COVID thing, continuous rentals, people coming in all the time. And we did not have any kind of track of it. So we know that it's obviously going on. So you're just asking, more or less all you're asking for is a direction for us to give you direction to look into.
Yeah,
this
so I
further.
can just see if
I
this
think
is
we need to reach
something
to
that
the
you want to
council see
do,
if
and
that
then I
ain't
can
something they would like
solidify.
to do.
To pay a big fee up front and then give them 60% of what they collect.
No, we've already done away
They've
with that.
done away
Right,
with
I
that.
understand.
Oh, yeah.
But even lowering those numbers, I'm not sure about. I'm not sure, you know, if we just cover our cost, what are we gaining?
I'm saying at minimum, I believe that we would cover our costs.
Okay.
Compliance, I mean.
Well,
it's
I think
just-
you should look into this.
Look
further.
into it some more. That's all she's asking for tonight, just look into it. Councilman Borman, Councilman Phillips, how do y'all feel about that?
Yep, fine with me. Yep.
Councilwoman Harris?
Without making a speech, yes.
Into it.
Okay, go ahead, Jamie, I apologize.
I said without making a speech, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
yes. So Tara, if you will, continue to look at it, and we'll get back. If it's not by the next meeting, which I know we're gonna be busier, maybe it's the second meeting, August, maybe you'll have some numbers for us. and we can get
Absolutely.
those in.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up is our ordinance amendment 3007 Sunset Beach Local ABC Board. Town Administrator Marziano.
Yes, sir. This is simply just cleaning up our ordinances. A few years ago, the council got the state to agree to take our ABC board membership back down to 3 members. And we never updated the local ordinances surrounding that. So this is just updating our local ordinances to match what the state's already approved a few years ago.
Yes, sir. So that being said, we're looking at amend our ordinance 3007 to reduce the ABC board, which is what it is now, down to 3. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Anybody have any discussion?
I think it should have never been changed from 5 to 3. My idea would be go back up to 5.
Councilman Borman, Councilman Phillips, do you have anything?
No.
Councilwoman Harris?
Nothing for me.
No, nothing.
Councilman Corbett?
No, I'm fine with keeping it at 3.
Okay. Hiram, did you have anything else? I thought you were wanting to speak, but.
Oh, no, I was saying goodbye to Tara.
Okay, thank you. That being said then, do I have a motion? I do have a motion on the floor. We have a second, so we're gonna vote. All in favor? Aye. Councilman Nern?
Aye.
Councilman Corbett?
Aye.
Councilman Borman?
Aye.
Councilwoman Harris?
Aye.
And Councilman Phillips?
Aye.
Okay. Next up will be the resolution opposing the exploration, systematic testing, and production of petroleum resource off the coast of North Carolina, and a call to action. Mr. Marziano.
Thank you. Recently, we got word that the U.S. Secretary of Commerce has overturned any of the objections from the state regarding seismic testing, which would not prohibit permits being issued. The state is looking at their next steps, and they can appeal that decision to the federal courts. So what I've provided with y'all is a resolution that I took last year's resolution of, I think it was last year's, anyway, previous resolution against offshore drilling, and added on to it a call to action with some extra commentary to encourage the state to appeal said decision and continue fighting against any type of seismic testing activities or drilling activities or any other exploration activities off the coast of North Carolina, so we can protect the marine wildlife, protect our beauty, protect our resources. So basically that's what this is. I'd already sent a letter to DCM and the state urging them the same fashion from a administrative perspective, but this would be just an official stance of the town using the resolution.
And you did note in there where they had reached out to me from the state with a whole lot of most mayors around here in the coast had
Yeah.
reached out about the signature, and I did agree to that, so.
Right. And there's that's an overarching statewide resolution. This is a more personal one for the state, but we are glad that you were able to put your name on that resolution as well.
Yes, sir. So that being said, do we have any more discussion?
No.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilwoman Harris,
Aye.
Councilman Phillips,
Aye.
Councilman Corbett,
Aye.
Councilman Borman.
Aye.
All right, next up is our disposition of directives. I know we have the state of emergency order will be looked at again at the August 3rd,
And the airboats.
and the airboats will
Or
be
just
on the
personal
3rd.
watercraft in
Have time
general.
to Get everything to Grady. That'll be on the 3rd.
Sunset at sunset.
Sunset at Sunset will be up. She will be coming to present what she thinks, her ideas. Sunset on Sunset. And anything else? Councilman Aaron, can you think of anything?
No.
Mr. Neal said he was gonna
Mr. Neal will
Oh,
check
give
up
us
on
a
that.
report.
Yep. So let's put him down. Councilwoman Harris, do you have anything?
I have nothing. Thank you.
Councilman Phillips
Nope.
and Councilman Borman?
More.
Okay. All right, with that being said, we'll move on to the next, be our public comments. Do we have anybody left in the back? While you're looking, I'm gonna go ahead and read these that we have. This is from Judy McDuffie, 425 3rd Street. Please address the issue of young children driving golf carts. Please don't wait till someone gets hurt. This is going on every day. Lots of children driving golf carts. And, okay. And then lastly is Stephen Stenery, 7645 Howard Market Street. Last year, Councilwoman Harris was going to spearhead a discussion on parking issues at Sunset Beach. We're sorry to see that it has been tabled. I would like to see the topic seriously revisited. I would think that it would be that with hundreds of homes and apartments slated to be built in our town and the immediate area and no way to stop the development, now would be a good time to be proactive. We as taxpayers should have some parking privileges. It is my suggestion a sticker system for identification should be implemented for Sunset Beach property owners. This system would be enforced by the Sunset Beach Police Department. Thank you. Have any more discussion? Anyone else? With that being said, if nothing else, move to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Councilman Corbett,
Aye.
Councilman Phillips,
Aye.
Councilman Nern,
Aye.
Councilwoman Harris,
Aye.
Councilman Borman.
Aye.
Good night, everybody. Stay safe.
Good night.
Good
Thank you,
night.
everyone.
Thank you. You didn't put South Jinks Creek on the agenda for the next meeting. No, the only thing would, you would have mentioned it. I would have pointed out that on November 19th, 2019, the council approved submitting the